Chapter 151. 34 days later, Ding Ming ended his cultivation. When he came out of the induction cabin, the entire hall was empty. There was not a single person in sight. Ding Ming was puzzled by this. I remember that there were many hunters who came here to cultivate. Why haven't I seen anyone in the past few days? With his current cultivation and brain development, even if he was lying in the induction cabin, his telekinetic vision could still clearly perceive every corner of every room on the 10th floor of the spaceport building. This question was answered when he walked into the deputy commander's office on the 8th floor. "Brother Ding, you're finally out." Salman greeted him warmly. "How was it? Did you recover well?" Ding Ming was a little embarrassed. "Captain, I stayed a little too long. I think I used up a lot of your military merit points, right?" Ahem. Salman's expression was also a little awkward. "It's nothing. Don't mind it, brother." In the past 34 days, Ding Ming had used up a total of 4,098 military merit points. On average, he used up more than 100 points a day. Salman's military merit points had long been used up. In desperation, Salman could only borrow military merit points from his other brothers in the division. At first, there were still people who were willing to lend him some. After all, he had a high reputation here. However, in the end, no one could borrow them even if they wanted to. Ding Ming had used up most of the cultivation resources in the entire base, causing the other hunters to have no resources to use. Planet KV-303 was a remote place to begin with. Headquarters only allocated a small amount of resources to this place every year. Now, all the amplification products had been used up by Ding Ming alone. Well, Ding Ming scratched his head in embarrassment. "Commander, Captain, I didn't pay attention to the cultivation time. I'm really sorry. It's okay." Gulaga patted him on the shoulder in a friendly manner. "Brother Ding, you don't have to apologize. The fact that you can cultivate for such a long time shows that your strength is extraordinary. We are sincerely happy for you. We had something to tell you, but you just happened to come out. Now that everyone is here, Miss Chu, you should tell them." Chu Xiaoqing had already stood up from the sofa. Her complexion was very good, and her face was full of vitality. She must have encountered something good. As expected, she smiled and said, "Ding Ming, let me tell you a piece of good news. Through the efforts of the commander and the captain, we have contacted a commercial fleet from the Norse Empire. They will pass by here in 2 days, and after a short stop at planet KV-303, they will send us back to the Empire." Ding Ming nodded. This was indeed good news. Chu Xiaoqing then looked at the vice captain and Sleeman. "Before leaving, I've already ordered some supplies from the caravan. I'll have to trouble the captain to distribute these supplies to the people living in the basement." Galaja hurriedly thanked her. "We were just worrying about this matter. We didn't expect Miss Chu to be so generous. Thank you so much." Chu Xiaoqing said sweetly, "Captain, you're too polite. Without the captain's help, we would have been doomed long ago in the K8 system. After being taken in by you and disturbing your base for so long, it's only right for me to contribute a little bit." This little bit was not little at all. There were a total of 500 bottles of energy mixtures, a total of 100 boxes. It was enough for the people living in the basement to live for a long time. Chu Xiaoqing did not lack money anyway. First, it was convenient for her to help, and second, it could be said that she had formed a connection with the Green Arrow Corps. In the future, after she joined the army, she would inevitably have to deal with the Green Arrow Corps and other outer space organizations. It was better to establish a good relationship early. After a series of thanks, Chu Xiaoqing's smile disappeared. "Ding Ming, I have bad news to tell you. This time, you can't go back with us." Ding Ming seemed very calm. "Has the Empire listed me as a wanted criminal?" Chu Xiaoqing nodded with a serious expression. "We just found out. Half a month ago, the military listed you as a 4th-level wanted criminal. You are accused of being a spy for the Federation and being suspected of murdering an origin ability user of the Empire. You are prohibited from entering the Norse Empire's territory." Ding Ming did not react at all. This result was completely within his expectations. When he was on the Songqing spaceship, Lan Bing's framing statement sounded ridiculous, But Ding Ming had a feeling that Lan Bing was not spouting nonsense. Sometimes, a true enemy would not lie to you. Things like lies were like a layer of paper, and paper could not wrap fire. No matter what you did, you could only achieve the results you wanted with sincerity. It was the same for your enemy. At this time, Xi and Jie walked over and looked at Ding Ming with a playful expression. "Are you happy to hear this news?" Ding Ming said, "I'm happy and not happy at the same time." Beside him, Xing Yi almost suspected that she had misheard. "Brother Ding Ming, you're happy to encounter something like this?" Before Ding Ming could answer, Xi and Jie had already answered for him. Of course he's happy. This means that his strength has increased and his identity has attracted attention. Think about it. Xing Yi, if you want to become a wanted criminal, you must first have the strength to commit a crime. Don't you think so? Xing Yi was speechless. She had no way to respond to this godlike logic. Ruolan curiously asked, "Then, why is he unhappy?" Xing Yi was finally able to respond. "It's not simple. He's become a wanted criminal of the Empire. No one will be happy about this. You're wrong." Xi and Jie immediately interrupted her. Xing Yi was stunned. "Wrong." Xi and Jie said, "Of course you're wrong. Do you think he's unhappy because he's a wanted criminal?" Xing Yi curiously asked, "Isn't he?" Xi and Jie said, "Of course not. If I were him, I think a level 4 wanted criminal is too low. It'd be best if he was a level 1 wanted criminal. The military would place a bounty of 1,000,000 star coins. That way, I'd be able to sell myself for a large sum of money. Wouldn't that make me happy?" What could Xing Yi and Ruolan say? They could only stare dumbfounded. They couldn't even make a hee-hee sound. After leaving the spaceport building, Ding Ming prepared to go for a stroll in the wilderness. There were no more amplification items in the sensory hall, so he could only go out to practice his skills. Xi and Jie walked side by side with him on the spacious landing plaza. Although it wasn't time to say goodbye yet, both of them knew that it was coming. They didn't know when they would see each other again. Perhaps it would be the next day, or perhaps it would never happen again. After all, interstellar refugees like them were already used to a life of exile. They rarely had high expectations for the future. Xi and Jie looked at the snowstorm in the distance and let out a long sigh. "I've always been curious. What did you steal from them?" "So you stole the K-virus." Ding Ming smiled. "I didn't steal in the first place. I just happened to come across the virus." "I believe you." Xi and Jie's face also revealed a happy smile. "Now that you can't go back to the Empire, what do you plan to do next?" Ding Ming said, "It's good to stay here." Xi and Jie smiled. "I definitely don't believe that." Ding Ming said, "Oh." Xi and Jie said seriously, "This place is too small. It can't hold you. Even if it can, sooner or later, it won't be able to hold you." Ding Ming thought for a moment. "You mean that Haitian group will come looking for me?" Xi and Jie shook his head. "That's not what I meant. I just think that you left a deep impression on me. I've always been curious about you." His words were very obscure, but how could Ding Ming not understand the logic behind it? The two of them had only met twice, and the time they had spent together was only a few days. However, there was an extraordinary attraction between them because both of them were curious. What kind of person was the other person? Why did he escape from the Black Gold base? Why did he appear on the Swordfish spaceship? Why did he have such amazing abilities? However, neither of them would take the initiative to ask. Sometimes, silence could allow people to maintain an appropriate distance between them. However, this time, Ding Ming spoke first. "Do I count as half a friend of yours?" Xi and Jie was curious. "Why not half a friend, but half a friend?" Ding Ming seemed to sigh slightly. "Because it's too expensive." "Too expensive?" Xi and Jie obviously did not understand. "Yes." Ding Ming nodded silently. "Friendship is priceless, but friends are precious. For a galactic refugee like me, I'm already very satisfied to have half a friend." Xi and Jie's eyes flashed. "But a galactic refugee like you is not an ordinary refugee." Ding Ming glanced at him. "How can I be different?" Xi and Jie stared at him. "Do you know that I investigated you on the space station of planet TT-12? Ding Ming asked. "Why did you investigate me?" Xi and Jie smiled. "In the military database, Other than the Empire Federation, the other regions and forces, big and small, don't have any information about you at all. Even the refugee camp's shelter system doesn't have any records of your incident. You seem to have appeared out of nowhere. Isn't that strange? Ding Ming said. What does that mean? Xinjie stopped smiling and said seriously, That's why I'm very curious. Where did you come from? Ding Ming suddenly stopped and looked up into the depths of the snowstorm in the distance. His gaze was somewhat absent-minded. After a long time, he finally spoke. If I say that I came from the Devourer's sector, would you believe me? Xinjie said, I definitely believe you. Ding Ming glanced at him again. You believed me one moment, and then you didn't believe me the next. Why do you believe me now? Xinjie said, That was then, and this is now. At least, there's a big difference between then and now. He did not say what was different, but Ding Ming still understood what he meant. Xinjie did not believe Ding Ming's words, but Ding Ming himself. What about you? Ding Ming asked in return. Where did you come from? And where are you going? Xinjie sighed, which was rare. I might come from the same place as you, but the place I'm going to is probably different from yours. Ding Ming asked, Where do you want to go? Xinjie was silent for a long time before he spat out two words. The future. For a moment, Ding Ming was silent as well, as if he was thinking about the meaning behind Xinjie's words. However, Xinjie did not give him too much time to think. He showed his signature smile again. It's about time. No matter what, I'm still looking forward to our next meeting. I hope you won't forget what you promised me on the Swordfish spaceship. Ding Ming also showed a knowing smile. Don't worry, I won't forget. Steak. I promise I'll treat you to a full meal. Xinjie did not say goodbye to him because he did not like parting. So he turned around and walked towards the spaceport building while shaking his head. He was still chanting his signature tune. My head can be broken, but my hair can't be messed up. Blood can flow, but my shoes must be oiled. I can't run, but I must tremble when I walk. I can skip meals, but I must smoke good cigarettes. Chapter 152. Ding Ming was strolling toward the east side of Green Arrow Base. According to Salmon's introduction, the east side was a no-man's land. The environment there was quiet, suitable for a person to cultivate alone. It wasn't until he left the area controlled by the base that Ding Ming realized the importance of the base to the residents of planet KV-303. With the base as the center, energy pipes and charging facilities were installed within a 50-kilometer radius. The enormous amount of energy contained within the silver core stones could maintain the temperature and electricity in this area. But once one left this area, the further one went, the heavier the snowstorm would become, and the lower the temperature would become. Following that, the air would become even thinner. Normal humans definitely wouldn't be able to survive in such an environment. Although Ding Ming was an origin ability user and could withstand the cold, when the temperature dropped to -90 degrees, he would still feel a slight chill. At that time, he would have to circulate his origin ability to resist the cold. At extremely low temperatures, the molecules and atoms in the air would move at a correspondingly slower speed. By the same logic, the absorption and circulation of origin ability wouldn't be as smooth as usual. Not only would the absorption speed slow down, but it would also be extremely difficult to circulate the origin. Only in such an environment could the benefits of the Diamond Star fusion technique be displayed. Not only did this smelting system store an excessive amount of origin ability for Ding Ming, but in this world of ice and snow, Ding Ming could also casually grab a small clump of ice and snow and circulate his origin ability to vaporize it. The resulting gas could be directly absorbed through the palm of his hand. After entering his body, it was reasonable to say that cold and heat would counter each other. In the past, it would be the heat source energy that would slowly devour and cancel it out. However, this time, the heat source energy guided it all the way into the small ball inside the mirror image. The pure energy within gradually transformed it into heat source energy, changing its nature. This was what Little Rascal had described as even air could be smelted. Of course, the energy of such a small clump of ice and snow was so weak that it could be ignored. Next was the cultivation of martial arts. The last time he cultivated martial arts was in the outskirts of Planet TT, 12's Yuanshan farm. Unknowingly, another 3 months had passed. His origin ability had greatly increased, but his martial arts had practically stagnated. In truth, Ding Ming had the greatest advantage when it came to cultivating martial arts. This was because he had Little Rascal, a hidden and invisible cheating device. First of all, Little Rascal would record all the people who had fought with Ding Ming in the consciousness space and study them one by one afterwards. Second of all, after unlocking the second level of authority, Little Rascal's copy ability had become even more powerful. Not only could she copy images and data files, she could also copy databases, servers, and part of the database's information. She could even remove encrypted information. In addition to his recent experiences, Ding Ming now had a lot of things to cultivate. In addition to the stolen 7 stars Ghost Kick, 9 forms of Swallow Attack, Army Boxing, Bright Fist, and his own Overlord's Mountain Crumbling Force, he could also practice Transient Steps, Afterimage, Gale, Phantom of the Phantom, Flame Energy Rushing Fist, Flame Energy Penetrating Force, Flame Energy Empyrean Form, and other martial arts. Although he had chopped off Long Ming's head with a single slash, the combination of Flame Energy Fist was still worth studying. Star Arts Light Speed martial arts could also be cultivated, but they were not. After all, the essence and mysteries of light-type martial arts still required specialized instructors or experts to point out the mysteries within. Lan Bing's series of Dark Ice Force, Dark Ice Annihilation Palm, and Frigid Winter Ice Dust Storm were also quite powerful, but they were all ice-type martial arts. Cultivating them conflicted too much with one's body. He could only seriously study their weaknesses to prevent himself from being taken advantage of the next time he encountered an ice-type martial artist. What Ding Ming was truly interested in were the solitary sword of Zhao and 12 forms of the sky sword that instructor Zhao Yu had taught him. Unfortunately, these 2 martial arts were too profound, and Little Rascal's database did not contain any guidance on them. Ding Ming had to rely on himself to figure out the moves one by one. In the darkness of the world of ice and snow, Ding Ming stood in the depths of the snow with his eyes closed. Suddenly, his right hand, which was originally hanging by his side, slightly raised. The ancient sword under his left rib was activated by his telekinesis. With a clang, it left its scabbard, and a dazzling brilliance immediately lit up the snowy ground. The long sword danced in the air, quickly stirring up the snow on the ground. The dark golden sword shuttled through the snow like a swimming dragon, and as graceful as a graceful swan. A huge ice boulder nearby was quickly cut into 7 or 8 pieces. Ding Ming opened his eyes as the ice flew towards him at an extremely fast speed. His entire body slid forward on the snowy ground. With a paw sound, Flame Energy Rushing Fist directly blasted the ice into countless pieces. Before the pieces could even scatter in all directions, Flame Energy Penetrating Force caused them to evaporate into white smoke in the air. At this time, the ancient sword returned. Ding Ming grabbed the hilt and stabbed forward like lightning. It seemed like only one move, but 5 or 6 figures of Ding Ming appeared on the snowy ground. Like the afterimage of the Light Speed series, the 5 or 6 figures stabbed forward at the same time. Although the sword was stabbing into the airflow was even more shocking. It was like a gust of white steam that swept out. In the blink of an eye, the clones merged into one again. Ding Ming suddenly leaped into the air at an angle. Sword shadows flashed in the air, and the figures merged and separated again. With a thud, the long sword fell from the sky and sank into the snow. At the same time, Ding Ming's entire body was covered by the golden diamond mirror image. His toes were on the hilt of the sword, and the whole snowy ground was dyed golden. The mirror image suddenly vaporized, and a bubble covered his body. At this time, Ding Ming put his palms together and pushed them to the sides. The bubble instantly evaporated, and there was an earth-shattering boom on the snowy ground. The airwaves and snow that were stirred up completely formed a massive patch of chaos. A short moment later, a massive crater appeared on the snowy ground. Ding Ming sheathed his sword and slowly walked out. Not bad, not bad. Little Rascal praised loudly. Ding Ming, your overlord's mountain-crushing force has improved tremendously during this period of cultivation. Xiao AI said, According to my assessment, ACT 55 70-foot S, Overlord's mountain-crushing force, is already at the level of second-grade ascension. What ascension? It's clearly the fusion realm. Little Rascal expressed his dissatisfaction. Xiao AI said coldly, if I say it's the ascension realm, then it's definitely the ascension realm. Why? Little Rascal was unconvinced. Xiao AI said, if you've really reached the fusion realm, that tremor just now could have turned everything within 20 meters into nothingness. Ding Ming nodded. He knew that Xiao AI's words made more sense. Martial arts like Overlord's mountain-crushing force could be used at will. In other words, it could be used with a single thought. Overlord's mountain-crushing force could be considered one of the best Overlord's mountain-crushing force techniques. However, he still needed to use his hands to guide origin energy and force fields, so his realm was still very low. That being said, his cultivation during this period of time was still very effective. Ding Ming was also quite satisfied with himself. If he had any regrets, it would be that the second stage of the Diamond Star technique had yet to be unlocked. Moreover, cultivation resources would be a huge problem. Green Arrow Base's sensory hall could no longer satisfy his needs. Most importantly, there was still the same old problem. No money. Without money, there was nothing he could do. The wristwatch in his mind buzzed and vibrated, indicating that there was a new instant message. The wristwatch Ding Ming was currently wearing was no longer the Norse Empire's Patriot Model 6, but the Green Arrow Corps' exclusive competitor wristwatch. It didn't look like a watch, but more like an arrow-shaped armband tied to his arm. It was obviously not as advanced as the Empire's wristwatch. The Green Arrow Corps' wristwatches weren't restricted by status. Salman had specially given it to him for ease of communication. It could receive signals within the range of the KV Nebula, and it could even connect to the darknet. It didn't have many functions, but at least it was practical. The miniature screen rose, and sure enough, Salman's face appeared on the screen. He looked very excited. Brother, where are you? How's your training going? Ding Ming said, Captain, from the looks of it, did something good happen? Salman smiled. Miss Chu's supplies have arrived, and so has the headquarters transport ship. The new supplies are entering the port. Brother, are you interested in coming back? Everyone is very happy. Ding Ming smiled. Actually, he had no interest in distributing supplies to the people in the basement, but seeing how happy Salman was, Ding Ming didn't want to be a wet blanket, so he agreed. Okay, I'll go back to the square immediately. At this moment, in the square of the spaceport, supply boxes with the Empire's dagger logo were piled up into a few hills. The people in the basement had also come out, and they were all jumping around the supplies happily. Ah Chao's child was also there. When he saw Ding Ming, he ran over cheering. Uncle Ding Ming. Ding Ming was also very happy to see this child. Before Chu Shaoqing and the others left, they had left a lot of nutrient solutions for everyone, so the child didn't go hungry recently. Even his complexion was a lot rosier. Ding Ming rubbed his little head. Little Shanzi, what have you been doing recently? Little Shanzi immediately punched the ground a few times and said proudly, I've been practicing martial arts recently. I want to be like Uncle Ding Ming and Dad, and become an origin ability user in the future to protect our loved ones here. Ding Ming couldn't help but smile. He really liked Little Shanzi. Little Shanzi's serious expression reminded him of his own childhood. He used to be just as innocent and naive, and he believed that Little Shanzi would definitely grow up in the future. Ding Ming. Ah Chao walked over with a large box. There are some new clothes here. Come and pick one. You're wearing too little. I don't need it. Ding Ming smiled and refused. He wasn't an ordinary person, and a cold like this was nothing. Right, where's the captain? Where did he go? Ah Chao turned her head to look at the spaceport building. He went to the captain's place. He told me to tell you that you can go straight up when you arrive. He has something to discuss with you. Ding Ming nodded. He guessed that Salmon didn't just want him to come back to get supplies, because there was a large Stinger speed ship parked in the center of the plaza. First of all, this battleship wasn't a transport ship. Second, it was clearly different from the surrounding Blazing Shark spaceships. Its appearance hadn't undergone any modifications, and it was very new and shiny, unlike the Blazing Shark spaceships that were covered in patches. It was obvious that someone else had landed here from space. Who would be interested in landing on this remote and barren planet KV-303? Chapter 153. The Deputy Commander's workshop did not have the joyous and festive atmosphere of the square outside. On the contrary, there was a depressing atmosphere in the air. As soon as Ding Ming walked in, a smile appeared on Sleeman's serious face. "Brother Ding, you're here. Come, let me introduce you. This is the Deputy Commander of our Green Arrow headquarters by you." Ding Ming only noticed then that in addition to Sleeman, Deputy Commander Galaga, and Yu Liang, there were two strangers in the room, a man and a woman. The man looked to be about the same age as Salmon. Although he had a benevolent appearance, he faintly exuded an imperceptible majesty. It was obvious that he was someone who was used to giving orders. He must have come from the upper echelons of headquarters. Bayu's attitude was very friendly. He took the initiative to extend his hand and said, "This must be Brother Ding. It's a pleasure to meet you. Commander Gulaga and Captain Sleeman have mentioned you to me more than once. Thank you for your help in the K-8 mission on the Dead Silent Star. On behalf of our Green Arrow Corps, I would like to express our most sincere gratitude to you." The big shots from the headquarters had come to this remote base in the middle of nowhere. Obviously, it was not as simple as transporting supplies. As expected, after a brief introduction, Bayu put away his smile and said seriously, "Actually, the main reason I'm here this time is to take care of something. Half a month ago, the headquarters received a bounty mission. The goal is to retrieve a test mixture for the employer in the Holy Grail Federation's Blue Pole Star City. The reward is 200,000 star coins." He was only halfway through his words, but Ding Ming and the others were all moved. Under normal circumstances, a low-level mission for a bounty hunter would start at 1,000 star coins. After all, the cost of sending out a spaceship and manpower was not small. 5,000 star coins was the first hurdle. It was relatively more difficult. Usually, it was to go to very bad areas to help people find rare resources or all kinds of strange things. It was quite time-consuming and energy-consuming. A mission of 10,000 star coins was the dividing line. Missions of this level were very tricky and had a certain degree of danger. If you want to take it, you had to be mentally prepared. It was very likely that you would not return. Now that Bailu had offered 200,000 star coins right off the bat, from a certain point of view, this mission was definitely not up to Sleeman and the others. The branch base simply did not have the ability to take over the mission, and it was very likely that the headquarters would personally take over the mission. This was where the problem lay. Retrieving a test mixture would cost 200,000 star coins. Furthermore, they had to enter the Federation's territory. Therefore, the value of this reagent would not be small. Therefore, Bayu had revealed a huge amount of information in just a few sentences. Bayu continued. The mission went smoothly. The reagent was obtained by Captain Yu Yixiao from our headquarters. However, on the way back, this reagent was unfortunately lost. Yu Liang didn't seem to understand. "We'll be taking a spaceship on the way back. How could we lose it?" Salmon's eyes flickered, and he muttered, "I'm afraid it wasn't lost, but replaced or stolen." Bayu nodded with a heavy expression. "After many investigations, we found that the reagent was indeed stolen. Furthermore, we also found out that the person who stole it was Nightmare." Ding Ming might not be familiar with Nightmare, but Salman and the others had heard of him for a long time. This guy with the nickname Nightmare was a very famous thief in outer space. He came and went without a trace. No one knew his background, and no one had ever seen his true face. This person was active among the various large military forces, and he was also the type of person who did things for money. Why was he called Nightmare? It was because once he set his eyes on something good, your nightmare would come. Over time, the nickname Nightmare was spread. Bayou's expression was very heavy. After many investigations, Nightmare did not take the reagent for himself. Instead, he sent it to another place through various transfers. Salmon frowned. Where did he send it? Bayou's expression was very ugly. As far as we know, the reagent is now in the hands of the Heavenly Wolf Mercenary Group's deputy commander, Huang Long. This time, not only did his expression turn ugly, but Salmon and the others also had ugly expressions. This was because the Green Arrow Group had always been at odds with the Heavenly Wolf Mercenary Group. It was basically impossible to get the reagent back. In fact, the Heavenly Wolf Mercenary Group did not only have a bad relationship with the Green Arrow Group, but also with all the military forces in outer space. The Heavenly Wolf Mercenary Group was very close to planet KV-303, but they had always been alone and did not take on missions from outer space forces. Their employers were mostly sects or financial groups of the Holy Grail Federation. It was said that they had dealings with large forces. To put it bluntly, they had the backing of the upper echelons of the Federation. Therefore, this mercenary group had always maintained an aloof attitude, like an independent kingdom among the military forces. To put it simply, one did not have to give the Heavenly Wolf Mercenary Group any face because they never dealt with others. The problem was that the reagent was now in their hands, so they had to deal with it even if they did not want to. Under normal circumstances, if a bounty hunter lost an item designated by their employer, according to the agreement on the darknet, if they could not find it within the stipulated time, they would have to compensate for the loss. Bayou said, "The compensation is 25 million star credits. It's not that our mercenary group can't afford it, but it's just a small matter." He did not say it clearly, but Ding Meng could still understand what he meant. Compensation was a small matter, but reputation was a big deal. The Green Arrow Group had a good reputation and cherished their reputation. If their employer's valuable item was lost in the hands of the Green Arrow Group, then the ability and credibility of all the Green Arrow hunters on the dark net would plummet. This loss was so great that it could not be measured by money. Therefore, this reagent had to be found. And according to the Green Arrow's usual style of doing things, they would always use a polite, peaceful, and friendly way to do things. Yu Yang could not help but ask, "Officer Bayou, did our headquarters not send anyone to communicate with them?" At the mention of this, Bayou's expression turned even uglier. "We, the Green Arrow Group, are willing to buy back this reagent for a high price of 4 million star credits." This was a message that the chief commander personally sent to Sirius, but they rejected it. 4 million star credits was already a huge loss for this mission, and if the chief commander personally contacted them, there was no result, which meant that there was no room for negotiation. That's why Miss Dai is here this time. She plans to make a trip to the Jifan system to lobby for the reagent on behalf of our Green Arrow Group. Bayou finally got to the point. Ding Meng only then noticed the other person sitting on the sofa in the distance. This was a rather eye-catching woman. She did not look very old, and was wearing a black and light green galactic tight-fitting outfit that outlined her entire body's curves. She sat lazily on the sofa, a pair of long, slender legs wrapped tightly in black stockings crossed. Just by looking at those legs, Yu Liang's throat involuntarily made a few gurgling sounds. These beautiful, almost flawless legs really caused one's imagination to run wild. There was a kind of soul-sucking charm to them. The woman's soft, jet-black hair draped over her shoulders, setting off her beautiful face. She had one thing in common with Lan Bing, and that was that she was cold and noble. However, the difference between her and Lan Bing, was that she did not have Lan Bing's cold temperament. This was because her chin was raised very high, and there was an arrogant expression between her eyebrows, as if she disdained to be associated with the people around her. Thus, when Bayou was explaining the situation, she did not even stand up. However, none of this was important because Ding Meng could sense that Bayou's origin energy fluctuations were very strong, not at all inferior to his own. On the other hand, The fluctuations coming from Dai Yi's body were much weaker. Of course, this was only relative. To have the strength of an origin energy warrior at her age was quite an impressive feat. Ding Ming suddenly understood Green Arrow's intentions. This Dai Yi was someone they had invited, and her background was probably not small. The Heavenly Wolf Corps could not give Green Arrow any face, but they would definitely give her some face. Since she was not a member of Green Arrow, she had a reasonable status to head to the Zhifan star system. However, after thinking through these key factors, Ding Ming had a trace of doubt. What does this have to do with me? Fortunately, Silman took the initiative to explain. Brother, the Heavenly Wolf Corps' territory is not a place where ordinary people can easily enter. Miss Dai is a girl, after all. If she goes alone, I'm afraid that there will be unexpected risks. Thus, I recommended you to Officer by you, hoping that you can accompany her. If she encounters any difficulties, you and Miss Dai, you can take care of each other. After all, you are not a member of Green Arrow. His explanation had a corresponding logic to it. Whether it was mercenaries or bounty hunters, in the various large organizations in outer space, origin energy users and beginner warriors were the mainstream. Those who were slightly more powerful were only mid-level warriors, and war venerables were extremely rare. These people were usually the leaders of the Corps and would not easily reveal themselves. However, Ding Ming's strength was quite powerful. Based on the mission on the Dead Silent Star, Ding Ming's strength would not be lower than that of a mid-level warrior. Thus, Silman's meaning was very clear. I hope that you can protect Miss Dai Yi's safety along the way. Before Ding Ming could answer, Dai Yi, who was sitting on the sofa, turned her head and glanced at Ding Ming in surprise. The corner of her mouth twitched twice, but she still did not say anything. However, the disdain between her brows became even more apparent. Others could understand her mentality. How should they put it? From the outside, Ding Ming was really too shabby and unremarkable. The jade light armor that Chu Shaoqing had given him had long been damaged in the battle with Lan Binger. Now, what replaced it was the slum clothes that Xiao and the others usually wore. There was an old checkered shirt, a pair of linen pants, and a pair of combat boots from Anvil Company. However, many places were old and worn. In addition, Ding Ming was not very tall, so Ding Ming always gave people the illusion that he was a wild child from some slum. The only thing that was a little surprising was the dark ancient sword at Ding Ming's waist. This showed that he was not an ordinary person. At the very least, he had practiced martial arts. However, who would still use this kind of toy-like antique weapon in this day and age? In Dai Yi's perception, she could not detect the existence of any origin energy on Ding Ming's body at all. She could not even feel a trace of fluctuation, so it was inevitable that she would look down on him. At this time, Baiyu also jumped out to persuade him. Little brother Ding, I know this request will definitely make things difficult for you, but there is no one else on planet KV-303. Your identity is the most suitable, and the time limit that the Darknet gave us to find them is very short. We can't invite people from other places. I hope you can understand our difficulties. If you can come with us, we, Green Arrow, will definitely reward you handsomely after the matter is done. What do you think? Ding Ming secretly sighed. Many years of living in exile had already made him develop an instinct. It was best not to get involved in other people's troubles, so as to avoid getting into trouble. It was just that during this period of time, the people on KV-303 were very friendly and took good care of him. The Green Arrow base also treated him well. At the very least, he used up all the cultivation resources on his own. However, Gulaga and Sleeman didn't have any dissatisfaction on their faces. Just based on this point, they couldn't reject him. Ding Ming took a deep breath. Okay, Officer Bai, then I will respectfully accept. Chapter 154. The Zhifan Galaxy was also located inside the KV Nebula, close to the K Galaxy, but it was the complete opposite of the K8 Galaxy's unique phenomenon of 5 planets in a row. The outer nebula of this region was filled with extremely dense gas and dust. To enter the galaxy, spaceships could not even use the 3rd cosmic speed. They had to fly very slowly, or else they would be in danger of disintegrating. And after entering, They would see more than 20 planets of different sizes revolving around a giant sun. The scale of the G-Fan galaxy was actually much larger than the K8 galaxy. In the command cabin of the Stinger speeder, the interstellar map on the main console had already risen. Bayou pointed at the outermost planet and said, "This is planet Chiming 1, the base of the Celestial Wolf Core." This planet Chiming was very similar to the Norse Empire's planet TT-12, both at the outer edge. But the most shocking thing was that in its outer space, there was also a huge international space station. There were also many spaceships entering the port, but there were no large spaceships. With the strength of a mercenary corps, to be able to build such a great wall of steel, it was just as Bayou said. This place was like an independent kingdom. Dai E, who was standing beside the main console, nodded. "Uncle Bai, thank you for your hard work. Leave the rest to me. You can go back later." Bayou also nodded with a serious face. "Little E, the people of Celestial Wolf are not easy to deal with. Be careful. If you can't reach an agreement, then don't talk. Leave early. Our green arrows matter is a small matter. Your personal safety is the most important." He was indeed worried about Dai Yi's safety. For this nightmare incident, the chief commander had used his connections that had not been used for many years to invite the Holy Grail Federation's Dai family to come and persuade the customs. Who knew that the Dai family would send the young Dai E as their representative? For such a young and beautiful girl to enter the Celestial Wolf mercenary base, the risk factor was not low at all. But since Dai E was already here, the chief commander could only force Dai E to go to the G-Fan galaxy. Whether or not the reagent was returned was secondary. If something happened to Dai E, then there would be a big problem. Thinking of this, Bayou seemed to feel that this warning was not enough. He turned to Ding Meng on the other side of the main console and said, "Brother Ding, I'll have to trouble you to take care of little E along the way." Ding Meng didn't answer. She just stood there and nodded in a daze. Dai E frowned slightly. From the bottom of her heart, she did not like Ding Meng. This kind of rustic interstellar refugee was from a completely different world from her, who was born noble. However, Bayou had good intentions, so she did not say much. Little did she know that Ding Meng, who looked like an idiot, was actually arguing with Little Rascal in the space of consciousness. Everyone knew that as long as Little Rascal saw a beautiful woman, he would yell, "Tiska, tissa, this body, these 3 measurements, this long hair, this tight leather pants, this perfume, these stockings." "Stockings, Ding Meng, can you hear me talking to you?" "Little Rascal, have you had enough?" Ding Meng scolded. "You haven't stopped since we got here from planet KV-303. You're making my head hurt." Little Rascal argued. "What's wrong with me? You think I'm bothering you?" Ding Meng said, "Of course you're bothering me." Little Rascal laughed coldly. "You think I'm bothering you while you're admiring the beautiful woman?" Ding Meng said coldly, "You're the one admiring her. I'm not admiring her." Little Rascal said angrily, "Ding Meng, you hypocrite. You're lying." Ding Meng argued, "How am I lying?" Little Rascal said, "According to my calculations, ever since we got here from planet KV-303, you've secretly glanced at her 67 times out of the corner of your eye. Of those, 52 times were when you were sneaking glances at her black stockings." "You." Ding Meng couldn't help but blush. "Little Rascal, you're really boring." Little Rascal laughed loudly. "Ha, how about it? Do you want to touch them? I'll teach you a way." Ding Meng really couldn't do anything about Little Rascal's mischievousness. He simply summoned, "Xiao AI, are you there? Come out." Xiao AI's cold voice quickly rang out. "ACT 5570, what's the matter?" Ding Meng suddenly had an idea. "That Dai, is there a need to get rid of her?" Xiao AI was puzzled. "Isn't she your teammate? Why do you need to get rid of her?" Ding Meng said, "The stockings she's wearing are too eye-catching. They're seriously distracting me. That's why I'm asking you." Xiao AI said, "I see. I suggest you get rid of her immediately." Little Rascal immediately yelled, "You two don't know anything about romance. You actually want to get rid of such a beautiful woman? What a waste of a heavenly treasure, you two bastards." Xiao AI's voice immediately turned cold. "You're just a support system. What do you know?" Little Rascal yelled even louder, "I'm the core system. Xiao AI said, "Support system, please shut up." Little Rascal said, "I'm not going to. I'm going to yell until you're annoyed." Xiao AI said, "You won't be able to annoy me. I have plenty of energy right now." ACT 5570's words are correct. According to my calculations, that die has already distracted him by more than 50%. Furthermore, I've also detected that his body is secreting a type of hormone at an accelerated rate. With the superposition of his origin energy, ACT 5570 is currently in a meditative state. Little Rascal said disdainfully, "Tui, you uncultured system. That's not meditation. That's YY." Xiao AI was curious. "What does YY mean?" Little Rascal was smug. "Are you stupid? That's human language. You won't understand." After successfully diverting Little Rascal's attention to Xiao AI, Ding Ming very decisively turned around and walked toward the connecting cabin. At this moment, the spacecraft had already received a signal from the space station. Entrance 32 has been approved. When the door to the connecting cabin opened, a group of fully armed mercenaries was already waiting respectfully in the passage. The Celestial Wolf Corps' financial strength was clearly higher than that of ordinary mercenary groups. Even the most ordinary non-origin ability user soldiers were equipped with mechanical armor, while the origin ability user mercenaries were wearing lighter, tight-fitting armor. Everyone was lined up neatly in 2 rows, respectfully welcoming the guests who had come from afar. The leader of the group was a tall, boorish middle-aged man. This was the elite captain of the Celestial Wolf Corps, Butcher. The ranks of the Celestial Wolf Corps were as follows: Head Commander, Vice Commander, Elite Captain, Team Member, First Line Soldier, Second Line Soldier. In other words, this Butcher was already a third-ranking member of the Celestial Wolf Corps. For someone like this to run to the space station's entrance to personally welcome them was a show of respect to Dai E. Ding Ming could sense that this person was about as strong as an intermediate thermostat warrior. Moreover, his origin energy fluctuations were quite strong. However, although this Butcher's appearance was nothing special, his speech was quite good. He walked up to Dai E with a beaming face. "I've long heard that Miss Dai was coming, and everyone wanted to see Miss Dai's elegant demeanor. Thus, Butcher made the decision to allow my brothers to come and welcome you. Now that I've finally seen you in person, I only have one thought. I really feel like my eyes aren't enough. Of course, I hope Miss Dai won't take offense. Our Celestial Wolf Corps is made up of crude men, and we've never seen a member of the opposite sex as beautiful as you, Miss Dai." Dai E smiled slightly in response to Butcher's enthusiasm. "Captain Butcher, I've really troubled you. You've waited for so long in this passage." Butcher lowered his posture and bowed slightly. "Miss Dai, you've graced us with your presence. It's my honor to serve Miss Dai." His politeness was only directed at Dai E, because what he said next was rather rude. "Commander Bai, you've traveled a long way to escort Miss Dai here. If you don't mind, please stay in the space station for a while. Once the matter is settled, you can escort Miss Dai back. If Commander Bai isn't used to the accommodations in the space station, then it's not a problem for you to come back another day to escort Miss Dai back. I've already notified the service port to replenish Commander Bai's spaceship with enough energy for the return trip. If Commander Bai needs any supplies, please feel free to let me know." The meaning behind these words was rather obvious. The Celestial Wolf Corps did not welcome outsiders, so Bai should quickly leave after escorting Miss Dai here. Bai shrugged helplessly. He gave Dai a look before turning around to leave. There was nothing he could do about it. Even the chief commander of the Green Arrow Corps did not respect him, let alone a vice commander like him. Butcher's gaze naturally fell on Ding Ming. "This brother looks unfamiliar. May I know your name?" Dai took the initiative to explain. "His name is Ding Ming. He's my distant cousin. He was originally cultivating in the KV star system, but he only had some free time recently. That's why I brought him along this time." This was clearly an excuse that had been discussed beforehand. Otherwise, Ding Ming's tattered clothes would have raised suspicions. However, even though he said that, Butcher's gaze still lingered on the ancient sword at Ding Ming's waist for a few seconds. He really could not see through this person called Ding Ming. Please. Butcher politely bowed and extended his hand. Miss Dai, Brother Ding, please come in. Thus, Dai, and Butcher walked in side by side, with two groups of people following behind them. Little Rascal jumped out again to mock Ding Ming. Yo, I couldn't tell. Ding Ming, you've gained another cousin. This cousin is really attractive. What do you think? Do you have any ideas? Little Rascal did not speak carelessly this time. This was because Ding Ming could sense that at least 20 people in the group of mercenaries behind him were looking at Dai Yi's buttocks. One could not blame the men for being lustful, because Dai Yi's attire and the way she swayed when she walked made it very easy for the opposite sex to have some unfriendly fantasies. Even Ding Ming himself was no exception. This was because Dai looked noble and elegant when she was sitting, but that was just a still image. Now, however, she was a moving, real person right in front of him. The difference between them could not be described in a few words. In the end, Ding Ming had not seen many women before. The number of members of the opposite sex he had come into contact with could be counted on one's fingers, less than 2 digits. The most important thing was that he had to keep his telekinetic vision open. With him as the center, he could clearly see any movement within a 500-meter radius. If there were any unstable factors, he would be able to quickly detect them. On the way here, Baiyu had explained the details of this incident very clearly. Logically speaking, with Dai Yi's status as a guest, there should be no problem. However, Ding Ming had a faint feeling that this mission might not be as easy as Baiyu had described. The reason was very simple. This celestial wolf army was not as unreasonable as he had imagined. Instead, they were overly enthusiastic. Chapter 155. The welcoming banquet was arranged in a restaurant on the space station. The restaurant even had a VIP room, similar to the restaurant on Anvil's Songqing spaceship. Although the place wasn't big, the decorations were exquisite. It was like a splendid hall in an exhibition hall. The crystal glass on the walls constantly changed into images of clear water and green mountains. For people who often traveled through space, it had a serene beauty to it. The exquisite square table was also filled with delicacies. Most of them were local specialties of Qiming No. 1. The typical dish was the spine-fly cod fillet. This special fish produced in the Zhifan star system was nutritious and melted in the mouth. It was one of the most popular delicacies for the rich people of the Holy Grail Federation. Of course, the Zhifan star system transported the ingredients to the Federation. The price of the ingredients itself probably wasn't enough to cover the cost of the transportation, so one could only imagine how high the price of this thing could fetch in the Holy Grail Federation. In any case, according to Dai Yi's casual answer, a plate of spine-fly cod fillet was worth 4 digits of star credits. It was so expensive that Ding Ming found it hard to imagine. Facing the table full of dishes, Dai Yi had no interest in using her knife and fork. According to their previous arrangement, the person sitting at the table to discuss matters with her shouldn't be Butcher. Butcher didn't have the right to be on equal footing with her. The one who truly had the right to be on equal footing with her was the main character, the deputy commander of the Celestial Wolf Corps. Huang Long. Butcher's explanation was rather far-fetched. Brother Long received an urgent mission from the chief commander and flew to another star system. He'll probably only be back in a week. Before he left, he specifically instructed me to take good care of Miss Dai. This meant that Butcher had full authority to negotiate with Dai Yi. This caused a slight smile on Dai Yi's face to vanish. However, her good upbringing prevented her from showing her dissatisfaction. She only stretched out a slender finger and lightly tapped the cup in front of her. Her tone was thoughtful. Captain Butcher, I heard that Nightmare sold the reagent to Commander Huang for 920,000 star credits. Butcher smiled and said, Young Miss Dai, actually, Brother Long only found out after he bought it. It turns out that the item was stolen by Nightmare from the Green Arrow Corps. Furthermore, we spent far more than that. To be precise, we spent 982,100 star coins. However, that small change is negligible. The Green Arrow Corps doesn't lack money. His answer could be said to be very strong, because he knew that Dao Dai was here to plead for Green Arrow, but he directly said that Green Arrow did not lack money, which made it clear that Green Arrow wanted to buy back at a high price, which would not work. Dai, he frowned. Captain Run. Actually, my visit this time has nothing to do with the Green Arrow army. Our Dai family only hopes that your army can sell this reagent to us. As for the price, we can discuss it. I can pay you within 2 million. Not related to the Green Arrow army? As if I believe you. Rintu thought so in his heart, but he did not dare to say it out loud. His face was still filled with a respectful smile. Miss Dai, you must be joking. For you to personally come to Planet Chiming is already our Skywolf Army's honor. How can we have the qualifications to ask the Dai family for a price? That doesn't make sense. Dai, he suddenly raised her head and stared at him with a pair of willowy eyes. Captain Run, I've come with sincerity. Rintu felt his hair stand on end from her stare. The Dai family was not considered a top-notch giant in the Holy Grail Federation, but they were not an organization that the forces in outer space dared to provoke. It was like the difference between a citizen of the Federation and an interstellar refugee. The difference in status was like the difference between heaven and earth. If they really wanted to take care of you, it would be very easy. I absolutely believe you. Rintu puffed out his chest. Dai, he was a little impatient. Let's put it this way. What do you need me to do for you to be willing to sell the reagent to me? Miss Dai, you're joking again. We definitely can't cause you any trouble. Rintu was still full of smiles, but his tone had changed. He muttered to himself, Actually, our army has a small problem. Dai, he said, What problem? Tell me. Rintu pointed at a plate on the table and said, Miss Dai, you've seen it for yourself. For example, this spine-fin sturgeon fillet is very popular within the Federation, and it's only produced in the Gifon star system. Our Sirius star system's ability to transport it is very limited. Every time we transport it to the space station at the border, the Federation taxes us too much. I wonder if Miss Dai can be magnanimous and lower the taxes a little? When he made this request, Ding Ming basically understood the truth of the matter. It turned out that the Sirius star system had been eyeing the relationship between the Green Arrow and the Dai family for a long time, and the Dai family had a lot of say in the tax system of the Federation. The Sirius star system was using the reagent as a threat in an attempt to lower the taxes and cut costs to increase the star system's financial strength. However, even an outsider like Ding Ming knew that Dai would never agree to this request. This was not a matter of being magnanimous, but a matter of huge benefits. Dai suddenly smiled. Her smile was very unique. Her lips did not open, and only the corners of her mouth curved into an arc. It gave people the impression that this woman was both shrewd and proud, gentle and strange. In any case, no one could guess what she was thinking. Captain Rin, does your star system think that this small bottle of reagent is worth that price? Dai asked with a smile. Rintu put away his smile and said seriously, I heard that this reagent is a newly developed sample. It can help one break through from beginner war supremacy to intermediate war supremacy. It can save at least a few years of time. Miss Dai, do you think it's worth that price? This time, Dai and Ding Ming were both stunned. This was something they had never expected. After all, Bai was not clear about the specifics of the reagent. When the Green Arrow Corps accepted the mission, they only knew to send a reagent from Blue Pole Star City to Dream Star City. The mission was that simple, but it turned out that there was such a big deal involved. Everyone was an Origin ability user, so they naturally knew how much of a price one had to pay to break through from one level to another. Even if a war supremacy did not obtain such a reagent, once the formula was put into production, its value would be immeasurable. However, Dai was still smiling. I don't know how much it's worth, but I do know one thing. This reagent should not be a reason for your star system to make a request of me. Rintu could not refute this point. You bought this thing from Nightmare Lord, which was not a legitimate reason. Now you want to make an unreasonable request? Do you think it's too valuable? Or do you think the Dai family is easy to bully? Miss Dai, I'm very sorry about this. Rintu helplessly spread out his hands. His tone was very complicated. You're a person of status, unlike us coarse old men. Our brothers don't have citizenship, and we spend our days in outer space, licking the blood from our blades. After today's meal, we might not be able to have another meal. The reagent is indeed very important to our celestial wolf core. It's fine if Misty is not willing to be magnanimous. After all, not only is the Green Arrow Corps interested in buying this item, the Surprise Assault Mercenary Corps is also interested in buying it. To tell you the truth, Brother Long went out this time to make contact with the Surprise Assault Mercenary Corps. When he mentioned the Surprise Assault Mercenary Corps, Ding Ming's right eye could not help but twitch. No wonder he kept feeling that something was wrong. It turned out that he had bumped into an old acquaintance. His experience at Black Gold Base had left him with no good impression of the Surprise Assault Mercenary Corps. He did not expect that he would have to deal with the Surprise Assault Mercenary Corps again because of this reagent incident. Rintu's answer had obviously disrupted Dai Yi's rhythm. Now, she knew at least one reason. The Green Arrow Corps' offer of 4 million star credits was not because the Celestial Wolf Corps did not want to give them face, but because the Celestial Wolf Corps did not care for such a small amount of money. What they wanted was bigger, so they refused. However, the purchase price could not exceed 2 million star credits. This was not a matter of money, but a matter of degree. Everything had to have a degree. If they went overboard, there would be no meaning. Dai Yi clearly did not believe that the Surprise Assault Mercenary Corps would offer a higher price. If I may be so bold, how much does the Surprise Assault Mercenary Corps intend to offer? Rintu smiled again. To be honest, Miss Dai, the Surprise Assault Mercenary Corps intends to cooperate with us. Although their overall strength is not much, their transportation ability is very strong. To a large extent, they can make up for our lack of transportation. The Celestial Wolf Corps had always been rich and self-sufficient. The Surprise Assault Mercenary Corps had a strong transportation ability and was densely packed with starships. The Green Arrow Corps had many hunters and was very famous. The Dragon Slayer Corps had a large number of soldiers and were well trained. The Extreme Thief Corps had a notorious reputation for committing all sorts of crimes. These 5 corps could be said to be the 5 most mainstream corps in the outer space starfields of the Holy Grail Federation. However, none of them were willing to submit to the other, and they rarely interacted with each other. For any 2 of them to cooperate was a rather rare occurrence. So that was how it was. Dai Yi gradually felt that this matter was becoming more and more troublesome, but she could not just stand by and do nothing. As such, she calmly said, "If that's the case, then the 3 of us can sit down and slowly discuss the terms. Captain Rin, what do you think?" Rintu did not expect her to suddenly make such a move. According to Huang Long's plan, Dai Yi should have retreated in the face of difficulties, and then Rintu would have sent her back. This way, they could get rid of Green Arrow's request without offending the Dai family. It could be said to be the best of both worlds. But now that Dai Yi had proposed a 3-way meeting, not only did Rintu not have the guts to refuse, even the entire Celestial Wolf Corps could not refuse because this was a legitimate request. She was not using the Dai family's name to pressure them. Seeing Rintu's hesitant face, Dai Yi's eyes stared at him. "Captain Rin, does your noble corps have any difficulties with this?" No. Rintu quickly smiled. "If Miss Dai is sincere in coming to negotiate, we will definitely welcome her. However, Brother Long might not be back for another 5 or 6 days. I'm worried that Miss Dai won't be able to wait that long." Dai Yi smiled. "I lack everything, but I don't lack time." Rintu was at his wit's end. "If that's the case, then I'll arrange for a ship to send Miss Dai and Brother Ding to Meteor City." Dai Yi said, "I was thinking the same thing. I've long heard that Meteor City is the masterpiece of your noble corps. This is a good opportunity to visit it." Chapter 156. The Meteor City was not built on planet Chiming No. 1, but it was located in the center of the Jifan galaxy. It was close to planet Chiming No. 13. Many years ago, the Celestial Wolf Army had not yet developed and could not even occupy a single planet in the Jifan galaxy. Therefore, they simply transformed a broken starship into a base camp in space. It was not until they slowly accumulated financial resources and the army had the ability to occupy a planet that they left the starship. However, the starship was not abandoned because the army obtained a silver core stone. The energy of the silver core stone was so powerful that it transformed the starship into the shape of a small star ring. Strictly speaking, this star ring was a miniature space station, but it was not used for defense. It was used to house people. The upper echelons and elites of the Celestial Wolf Army lived on this star ring. This place was qualitatively different from the Black Gold base. The Black Gold base relied on the liquid dome above to absorb a large amount of heat energy to simulate day and night, creating an illusion from the perspective. On the other hand, the star ring relied on the super energy of the silver core stone to create real spring, summer, autumn, and winter, and the change of the 4 seasons. Also, relying on the countless updates and constructions of the army, this place slowly turned into a natural habitat where birds chirped and flowers bloomed. Even many habitable planets in the Holy Grail Federation and the Norse Empire rarely saw such a beautiful paradise. Therefore, the name of the Meteor City spread like wildfire. Many rich and powerful people of the Federation even used their leisure time to travel here. This was the real reason why the Celestial Wolf Army was on good terms with the Federation. The Meteor City also had a great advantage. It was a modified starship that could constantly fly around in the G-Fon galaxy. Coupled with the high density of a nebula in the periphery of the galaxy, it was basically impossible for foreign enemies to invade, so the safety factor was very high. In fact, the construction of this kind of celestial city was not difficult. The Federation and Empire could still do it, but the Federation would not use something as precious as the silver core stone for this purpose. It would be a waste of resources, so the birth of Meteor City was a special case. Observed from space, the Flying Star City was like a small satellite that was revolving around Chiming number 13. But after landing on the planet, one would discover that it was a completely different world, just like the primitive towns of human beings several centuries ago. Blue seas, blue skies, high mountains, flowing rivers, delicate bungalows were embedded in the green lawns, and special residential areas, energy supply areas, living areas, and entertainment areas had also been established in the distance. In this era, steel jungles, skyscrapers, and underground spaces had suppressed humans for too long. However, such a place was the living environment that everyone dreamed of. As a woman, Dai obviously liked this place. When she walked down from the Mystic Bird spaceship, she couldn't help but take a deep breath. The air in this place seemed to be exceptionally fresh, with a natural fragrance of plants. The green grass under her feet was so soft that she felt as if she was floating. "It's so beautiful," Dai praised sincerely. Not only did she think so, but even Little Rascal and Little AI said in unison, "Wow, this Meteor City is so beautiful." Ding Ming noticed that this place seemed to be in the suburbs, and the real urban area was in the distance. From afar, it looked like a fantasy city in a fairy tale world, but he didn't feel anything about it. The Qingxi farm of the Yu family on planet TT-12 was similar to this. It was just that the facilities were outdated and the place was a little poor. The resting place, arranged by Butcher, was in a manor at the top of a small hill. It was a 3-story villa with a helipad, a swimming pool, a tennis court, and other functional facilities. Standing in the courtyard of the villa and looking into the distance, there was an endless blue ocean in front of him. This place truly faced the sea and had flowers blooming in spring. The Celestial Wolf Army indeed showed sincerity to the representatives sent by the Dai family and gave them enough face. Butcher didn't follow Ding Ming. Accompanying Dai, he was only an ordinary female soldier. After all, Dai, he was a woman, so having a female soldier by his side would undoubtedly make things a lot more convenient. The female soldier's name was Lu Fei. No matter how you looked at it, she couldn't be any more ordinary. As for Ding Ming, he was free to do as he pleased. However, the Celestial Wolf Army didn't neglect him. As soon as he entered the villa's main hall, Lu Fei immediately called for the staff to serve a delicate drink to Ding Ming. This drink, which looked like black tea, tasted quite good. It was refreshing and sour, and had a rich aftertaste. Most importantly, when he drank it, his mind would double. Ding Ming felt that the consumption of his telekinesis vision wasn't as great as before. Mr. Ting, this is the famous spirit calming tea of our Jifan division. Its main ingredient is medicine. It can relieve an origin energy user's fatigue after meditation and greatly reduce the burden on the brain. Most importantly, it doesn't have any side effects. Long-term consumption is very beneficial to the body, Lu Fei explained with a smile. So that's how it was. Ding Ming felt his entire body relax a lot. Little Rascal was also calculating. This thing is really not bad. Ding Ming, your telekinesis consumption rate has decreased by at least 6%. Ding Ming nodded. Then, give me another cup. Oh no, give me 20 cups. Lu Fei's mouth fell open. She had never seen a customer who wanted to drink 20 cups in one go. This volume, were you sure you could drink it all? Seeing her stunned expression, Ding Ming asked in confusion, is there a problem? Lu Fei quickly reacted and hurriedly replied, no problem, no problem. Mr. Ting, please wait a moment. After 20 cups of spirit-calming tea were placed on the coffee table, a scene that left Lu Fei and the staff dumbfounded appeared. Ding Ming's hand danced a few times, and a large portion of the cups on the coffee table were immediately emptied. Although it was said to be a few dances, in reality, Lu Fei and the others couldn't see what was going on at all. This was because Ding Ming's hand speed was too fast. It was completely an illusion. Ding Ming's drinking method was too precise. As soon as he picked up the cup, his wrist slightly shook, and a reddish-brown liquid was flung into his mouth. With another flick of his hand, the second cup was gone. In less than half a minute, Ding Ming had flung all 20 cups of spirit-calming tea. Lu Fei looked at Ding Ming as if he was a monster. It wasn't that Ding Ming's drinking method was cruel, but that the guests who came to this place were either rich or respectable. They all paid more attention to etiquette and image. It would be like a hurricane like Ding Ming. This was completely the drinking method of a monster. However, Ding Ming still hadn't had enough and burped. This stuff was so good, and there were no side effects. The more the better. Give me another 20 cups. Ding Ming also knew that this was the hospitality of the Sky Wolf Corps. It would be a waste if he didn't drink it. After thinking about it, he changed his mind. No, give me another 50 cups. At this moment, an intoxicating fragrance drifted over from the stairs on the south side of the hall. Dai had already changed out of her galactic clothes and into a fashionable white V-neck swimsuit. There was even a layer of gauze as thin as a cicada's wing on the outside. It seemed like she was preparing to swim in the villa's swimming pool. This outfit might not have any lethality on other people, but Dai had a pair of long legs to begin with. With the addition of the light gauze, the outline of her perfect figure was faintly discernible, especially her slender, straight, and beautiful legs. They were so white and smooth that Ding Ming did not dare to raise her head to look directly at them. Just because he didn't dare to look at her didn't mean that she didn't notice him. Dai glanced at the empty cups on the coffee table and shook her head helplessly. There was a faint trace of disdain in her eyes. It couldn't be helped. Ding Ming was a galactic refugee who hadn't seen much of the world. A small cup of spirit-calming tea was enough to make him crave it. Moreover, his drinking method was too heaven-defying. It was hard for people to have a good impression of him. However, Dai still didn't say anything. She walked out of the hall with a gust of fragrant wind. The effect of this fragrance was obviously greater than 20 cups of spirit-calming tea. Ding Ming couldn't calm down when Dai walked past him. This smell is so fragrant. Little Rascal came out with a grin. Hee. Ding Ming, you're not being honest. Although you didn't look at her, your psychic powers scanned her body from head to toe. Ahem. Ding Ming pretended to cough dryly. My mission is to protect Miss Dai's safety. I have to keep my psychic vision open at all times. Little Rascal smiled. Yes. If you protect Miss Dai's safety, then quickly go to the swimming pool. What if Miss Dai doesn't know how to swim and drowns? I've detected that there's a cloakroom upstairs. Go change into your swimsuit. It's fun to play with two people. Ding Ming's eyelids drooped. I've never worn a swimsuit before. Little Rascal said, You outdated bumpkin. Why would a man need a swimsuit? A pair of shorts is enough to get him into the water. That's right, as long as his long legs are exposed. That's enough. Remember, long legs, that pair of long legs. It would have been better if little rascal hadn't mentioned Dai Yi's long legs. The moment she did, Xiao AI came out. ACT 5570. This is the 73rd time you've observed Dai Yi's legs. It's seriously reducing your mental focus. To avoid unnecessary trouble, I suggest you eliminate her immediately. Ahem. Little rascal also coughed dryly. She was most afraid of Ding Meng's caveman mentality and Xiao AI's elimination command, so she could only change the subject. Ding Meng, I think you shouldn't follow her to the swimming pool. Oh? Why? Ding Meng was a little surprised. It was rare for Little Rascal to advise him to stay away from a beautiful woman. This wasn't Little Rascal's style. Little Rascal said, "You've been cultivating quite well recently, and the origin energy in your body is abundant. I think that Huang Long guy won't be back for a while, so why don't you take advantage of this opportunity to make contact with the seventh origin? It'll be beneficial for your future cultivation." For once, Xiao AI didn't raise any objections. I agree. ACT 5570 has wasted too much time. It's time for him to speed up his transformation. He's so pitifully weak right now that I don't even want to talk to him. That's great. Ding Meng was overjoyed. Little Rascal said, "But this hall is really inconvenient. Let's go upstairs and find a room." Chapter 157. The private rooms in the villa were different from the rest rooms on the spaceship. At the very least, there was no sensor pod in Ding Meng's room. In fact, there was no sensor pod in Dai Yi's room either. After all, sensor pods were used to read the data of a person's body. Therefore, even if Butcher was willing to provide them with basic pods for cultivation, Ding Meng and Dai Yi would not be able to use them. Since there was no sensor pod, they had to use the old method. They sat down cross-legged on the large, soft bed by themselves, and then quickly began to meditate and enter the space of consciousness. This time, Ding Meng's space of consciousness was no longer a sealed house. The house was still there, but it was built on a beach by the sea. Other than that, the surroundings were still dark. Little Rascal said, "After my level 2 authority was unlocked, Ding Meng, your space of consciousness has been strengthened quite a bit." Ding Meng nodded. He could already see that the degree of realism of his shadow model had increased by a large margin. Originally, it was just the physical features, but now, the facial features, facial wrinkles, hair, and other minute details had all been refined. The black gold worker's uniform on his body had been replaced with Anvil's green light armor. The entire shadow was vivid and lifelike, glowing just like a real person. The shadow began to train on the beach. First, it raised a golden diamond defensive mirror image. Then it performed a set of Leaston Academy's Bright Punch. It looked very real. Little Rascal began to zoom in on the shadow's heart. Currently, the simple diamond mirror image formed by the 6 origin points was glowing. However, at the centermost position of the top of the mirror image, an even brighter virtual point of light rose up. This point alone was much larger than the previous 6 points. "This is the 7th point." Ding Meng looked at it curiously. Little Rascal's tone became serious. "Ding Meng, this 7th point is no small matter. You must be mentally prepared. The reason I didn't let you come into contact with it before was because I was afraid that you wouldn't be strong enough and would be too impatient, which would lead to cultivation deviation." Ding Meng took a deep breath and said, "Little Rascal, let's begin." With a whoosh, Ding Meng's vision changed drastically once again. It felt like he had entered a more microscopic world of consciousness from the space of consciousness. Before he could see clearly, he felt a sharp pain in his eyes, and a huge amount of information rushed into his brain. It was the same feeling he had when he first operated the BlackRock Night Armor. Hurry up and increase the strength of your telekinetic vision. Otherwise, you'll be in danger of losing your sight, Xiao AI said this time. Ding Meng did not dare to be careless. His psychic vision quickly shrank from 500 meters to 15 meters, but the pain was only slightly reduced. It could not relieve the terrible pressure on his eyes at all. Xiao AI said, "You still have to shrink it into a point inside your body." Focus it on your eyes and guide it to the two of us. In fact, Ding Ming had tried this before. After the telekinesis field of vision was reduced to a point, this point was like the sharpest weapon. No matter what it was, nothing could block it. Of course, there were two great risks in doing this. One was that you would lose your perception of the outside world. At this time, if someone attacked you in the real world, you would be in a defenseless state at all. The other risk was that he would be able to detect an origin ability user who was stronger than him. If he were to be detected by that origin ability user, the consequences would be severe. However, now that the telekinetic point had converged on the two caterpillars, the piercing pain was reduced by more than half. Little Rascal explained, Ding Ming, do you remember what I told you? There's a unique fusion point inside your body. Only with it can you complete the fusion, and only then can we communicate with your consciousness. This fusion point has a mysterious function that even we can't see its full function. Only when the telekinetic point and the fusion point are combined can you see the seventh point. Pay attention, we're officially starting. As soon as Little Rascal finished speaking, Ding Ming's vision finally cleared up. However, what he saw this time was neither complicated nor abstruse patterns, nor was it a model of a sandbox palace. He could not describe the scene in front of him at all. All he saw was countless strange objects flying past his vision. There were interstellar battleships at full power, alien life forms of all shapes and sizes, high-speed comets and meteorites, all kinds of weapons, vortexes like black holes and wormholes, and people of all shapes and sizes. He could not name what he saw next because he had never seen it before. If there was a difference between this seventh point and the previous 6 points, it would be that the things he saw were all being demonstrated in a high-speed, dynamic manner, while the previous 6 points were basically static. Soon, Ding Ming felt the stabbing pain in his eyes intensifying again. Xiao AI decisively gave the order, withdraw your telekinetic power and retreat. With a whoosh, Ding Ming's vision returned to normal, and he was back at the small house on the beach. What's going on? Ding Ming was completely confused. Little Rascal said, you just entered the intermediate consciousness space in your memory, and now you're back in the beginner consciousness space. How is it? Can you remember it? Ding Ming was confused. Remember what? Little Rascal said, the images you saw just now. Ding Ming was aghast. Those things are the structure of the seventh point. Little Rascal said, correct, but that's only a small part. We didn't show you the complete structure. With your current strength, there's no way you can see the whole thing. Otherwise, you'll run the risk of cultivation deviation. Ding Ming was completely speechless. Even though he had mentally prepared himself, he never imagined that the seventh point would be like this. The structure wasn't complicated at all. It was completely abnormal, the most abnormal of abnormal. Seeing him remain silent for a long time, Little Rascal surprisingly didn't rush him. Instead, he sighed and consoled him. I know that the seventh point is far too difficult for you. After all, it's a 7-star cultivation technique. Ding Ming, you're actually doing pretty well. At the very least, you were able to last this long in observation mode. Normal origin ability, users wouldn't even be able to look at it. Just a single glance would cause them to suffer cultivation deviation, and in serious cases, they'd go crazy on the spot. She thought that Ding Ming had been intimidated, but to her surprise, Ding Ming quietly replied, I can remember it. What? Little Rascal and Xiao AI exclaimed at the same time. Ding Ming's voice was very calm. I said I've already remembered it. You've gone crazy? Little Rascal was a little frightened. No, I'm perfectly normal, Ding Ming calmly replied. Xiao AI was also in a state of disbelief. According to the test results, ACT 5570's weakness level is a little high at 51%, but there's no other abnormalities with his body. Little Rascal stared blankly for a long while before saying, How about this, Ding Ming? Since you said you can memorize it, why don't you practice with this elementary consciousness space first and construct a preliminary virtual construct on it? The projection's heart was quickly enlarged, and the seventh point was also expanded. Little Rascal and Xiao AI were soon able to see the first Kuan Peng interstellar battleship rapidly taking shape. However, there was a problem. Ding Ming was unable to construct a moving image of the battleship firing. What's the reason for this? Ding Ming couldn't help but ask. Little Rascal said, the amount of origin energy in your body is far from enough to construct those moving images. Not only does it require an even deeper foundation of origin energy, but it also needs to be coordinated with your thoughts. How do I describe it? It's like when your smelting system and origin energy reach a level where they can't be stopped, those moving images will naturally appear. Little Rascal suddenly sighed. But this is already enough. Ding Ming, you really are worthy of being called a genius. Xiao AI said, of course. When I first chose ACT 5570, I already saw this point. His genes and body are extraordinary. Little Rascal sighed. Ding Ming, you should leave for now. The second stage of the Diamond Star technique should end here for now. Forcefully cultivating it will have side effects on your body, so I don't recommend you continue. Xiao AI said agreed. Ding Ming slowly retracted his telekinesis vision. Only when he opened his eyes did he feel that his body was quite weak. 6 points of origin energy had taken a lot out of him. Little Rascal said, not bad, right? It's a good thing you drank those dozens of cups of calming tea. Otherwise, your telekinesis consumption would have been even greater. Ding Ming, however, was still a bit unsatisfied. No way, it's only been a short while. But this 7th point is really too exhausting. Little Rascal laughed coldly. You really think it's only been a short while? Ding Ming said, isn't that the case? Xiao AI's voice returned to its cold and indifferent tone. ACT 5570. Let me remind you that 133 hours, 57 minutes, and 48 seconds have already passed. Holy shit. Ding Ming was completely speechless. It felt like only half an hour had passed in the intermediate consciousness space, but 5 or 6 days had passed in the real world. No wonder people said that the cultivation of origin energy was a bottomless pit. Not only did it consume your energy and resources, but it also consumed your money and time. He turned his head to look out the window. The bright moon above the sea was emitting a golden radiance. Soft rays of light fell into the room, but it was still very dark inside. It seemed that it was still nighttime. Since that was the case, he might as well absorb some origin energy to replenish his energy. From his initial observation, he didn't use any of the origin energy in his body to refine the 7th point, so he recovered quite quickly. However, in Ding Ming's perception, it didn't take long for him to replenish his origin energy before a light knock sounded from the door. When Ding Ming opened his eyes again, the sky was already bright. The person standing outside the door in his telekinesis vision was Lu Fei. She was politely knocking on the door. Mr. Ting, are you in your room? Ding Ming could only open his mouth and reply, I'm here. Lu Fei said politely, Mr. Ting, Miss Dai asked me to inform you that she will meet you in the lobby downstairs in half an hour. She said that she has something to discuss with you. Ding Ming nodded. Please tell her that I just woke up. I'll be right down. Chapter 158. In a living room on the first floor of the villa, Dai, he was enjoying the calming tea in a very elegant posture on the sofa. Her sitting posture was quite unique, too. She liked to cross her legs and raise them up, giving people a feeling of nobility and laziness. Other women could not copy her sitting posture even if they wanted to, because their legs were not as long as hers. Now, her long legs were covered with black stockings, and the galactic bodysuit was back on her. However, there was a hint of impatience between her eyebrows. Ding Ming was walking down the stairs slowly with his ancient sword in hand. His posture was as weird as it could get. Did you not sleep well? Dai suddenly asked. It was not hard to understand why she would ask such a question. Ding Ming had stayed in his room for 5 days and 5 nights without coming out. There was neither an induction cabin nor a nutrition cabin in the room. The only explanation was that Ding Ming was sleeping soundly. Ding Ming was a bit embarrassed. Sorry, I have never slept well. It was the truth. He had developed this habit during his time in the Black Gold Base, because he would be woken up by all kinds of accidents or dangers at any time. How could he dare to sleep peacefully? Staying alert was a good habit that Ding Ming had developed all the time. In fact, Ding Ming could feel that Dai Yi did not have a good impression of him. To be more precise, it was normal for her to look down on interstellar refugees as a young lady. After all, Ding Ming had never cared about other people's impression of him. As long as he could eat and drink well in this place and observe the 7th point smoothly, he would be satisfied. Other things were not that important. However, it was impossible for him to be smooth. He finally put down the teacup and said seriously, Huang Long has returned to the Flying Star City. He will probably be here in a while. What do you think? What she meant was that they would be negotiating in a while. If you have any good ideas, feel free to share them. Now that we are on the same side, it is better to be prepared. But what does the negotiation have to do with me? Ding Ming thought for a while and replied, I don't have any opinions, as long as everything goes well. A hint of disappointment flashed through Dai Yi's eyes. In her mind, even if the person recommended by Bai is not strong in martial arts, he should at least be capable in other aspects. However, looking at Ding Ming's mediocre performance along the way, she really did not understand the meaning of Ding Ming following them all the way. All right, then let's go out. Dai Yi stood up. The location of the meeting was still this villa manor. An elegant white round table had been set up on the lush green lawn, and 3 chairs were placed on the side. A cool breeze blew over from a vast sea. Discussing matters in such an environment was undoubtedly pleasurable. Of course, if the negotiation was successful, it would be even more pleasant. About 10 minutes later, a sky blue shuttle car floated in from the gate of the villa. Ding Ming did not know much about cars, but he had ridden an Adu's truck in Verntarn Town. He knew that whether a car was good or bad did not depend on its appearance, but on whether the suspension system at the bottom was stable or not. The bottom of this Skybird shuttle car was spurting out dense crystal flames. It stopped steadily in the courtyard, and there was almost no tremor. With just a glance, Ding Ming could tell that this thing was much more high-end than Chu Xiaoqing's Bluebird. This Sky Wolf core was indeed rich and powerful. After the door was opened by the staff, 2 tall and mighty middle-aged men walked toward the lawn in an imposing manner. The man walking at the front was undoubtedly the vice commander of the Sky Wolf Corps, Huang Long. This was because Butcher was equipped with a lightweight, tight suit of armor. On the shoulder was the emblem of the Corps, a wolf's head howling at the sky. However, Huang Long did not have a rough appearance like Butcher. On the contrary, he looked very refined. If not for the armor he was wearing, one would think that he was a civilian worker in a company. His complexion was slightly yellow, and there was a faint arrogance between his eyebrows. When he walked, his pace was slow and steady. It was obvious that he was someone who held great power in the Corps. When he saw Dai Yi, Huang Long quickly walked up to her and said with a smile, "To have Miss Dai personally wait for me. This Huang is really ashamed. Please take a seat, please take a seat." When he spoke, his voice was sharp and thin like a woman's. Dai could not help but have goosebumps. However, etiquette was still necessary. Dai extended her hand and said, "Commander Huang, I've been waiting for you for 5 whole days." Dai Yi's voice gave people the impression that it was gentle and elegant. It was especially comfortable to listen to, but the speaker did not mean it. Huang Long quickly shook her hand and apologized. "Miss Dai, I'm really sorry. I had to go out for a while. If Butcher and the others did not treat you well, please forgive them." Dai Yi quickly withdrew her hand. She did not have a good impression of this Huang Long, putting aside the fact that he was a sissy. When they shook hands just now, she clearly felt that he had held her hand for 1 or 2 seconds longer than usual. It was suspicious that he was trying to take advantage of her. As a great beauty, she was usually very sensitive to such small actions. Even if someone looked at her a few times, as long as there was something wrong with their gaze, she would immediately sense it. For example, on the way here, she had felt that Ding Ming would occasionally glance at her thighs. As a healthy man, it was normal for him to have such a gaze, so she did not dislike Ding Ming. However, there was a hint of playfulness in Huang Long's handshake at this moment, which made her feel rather disgusted. In the face of Dai Yi's vigilance, Huang Long did not seem to care at all. He said enthusiastically, "Miss Dai, allow me to formally introduce you. This person beside me is the commander of the raiding mercenary group number 8. This time, he has come to Meteor City on behalf of his raiding mercenary group. He wishes to discuss the matter of the reagents with you." Behind Huang Long, a burly man who looked like an iron tower slowly walked over. His voice was very cold, and his first sentence shocked Huang Long and Dai. "Number 8028, we meet again." Number 8028 was Ding Meng's labor number in black gold base. No one would have thought that he would actually know it. Ding Meng was still indifferent. His surprise had already occurred when this man came out of the shuttle car. Not only did he know the man in front of him, but he also had a very deep impression of him. He was the number 1 commander of Black Gold Base, the Marshal. The Marshal was surprised to see him, but he was even more surprised to see the Marshal. During the solar eclipse disaster on the dead silent planet, even Julie had not been able to escape. Who would have thought that the Marshal would actually survive in the end? It seemed that it had not been easy for him to survive. The 3 strange scars on the left side of the Marshal's face were even more obvious. They looked like 3 red centipedes embedded in his face, twisted, ugly, and terrifying. "Hello, Marshal. I am very happy to see that you are still alive." As soon as Ding Meng said this, the atmosphere suddenly became tense. The Marshal said meaningfully, "This is all thanks to you." Ding Meng replied expressionlessly, "Being alive is better than being dead." The Marshal smiled. "I'm also very happy to see that you are still alive." His hatred for Ding Meng was not ordinary. Ding Meng had killed a large number of his capable subordinates, startled the monsters, and destroyed Black Gold Base. Most importantly, Ding Meng had stolen the memory chip of the K-virus. Chu Yifeng's Extreme Heaven Company had terminated their cooperation with the Assault Corps, so he could not get his huge reward. His many years of hard work had gone down the drain. As soon as he said this, there was a meaning behind it. "You better be alive because I'm going to kill you with my own hands. As long as you're happy." Ding Meng also hated the Marshal. It was because of the Marshal's orders that Little Four had unfortunately been shot and killed by the mercenaries' indiscriminate bombing. Little Four's hopeful eyes and trusting smile before he died were images that Ding Meng would never forget and would never be able to let go of. There was also that blood-stained bracelet, which was now in his pocket. There were some things that constantly reminded him to move forward bravely and never forget. Seeing that these 2 people not only knew each other, but also had the intention of going tit for tat, Huang Long decisively smiled and came out to smooth things over. "Haha, so Brother Hu and Brother Ding are old acquaintances. This is great. Tonight, I will be the host. Let's sit down and have a good drink at this place to celebrate the reunion of old friends. Marshal, what do you think?" The Marshal was very polite to Huang Long. "This is Brother Long's territory. Naturally, I will listen to Brother Long's arrangements." These words were obviously said to Dai. Dai had also come back to her senses. She had already seen that Ding Meng and the Assault Corps' leader had a deep grudge. This undoubtedly increased the obstacles in the negotiations, but now was not the time to blame Ding Meng. Dai also showed her mixed gentle and strange smile. "My cousin is not very sensible. If he has offended you in the past, please forgive him." In the face of Marshal Dai, he did not dare to act rashly. He also responded with a smile, "Miss Dai, I admire your cousin very much. I didn't expect Brother Ding to be your relative. If I didn't do enough before, please forgive me." This seemed to be polite, but in fact, it was also a hint. "Do you think I don't know Ding Ming's background? He is still a rookie under my previous subordinates." At this point, Dai did not say anything more, because Lu Fei had already placed the drinks and snacks. The group of people quickly sat down at the small table. Because it was a 3-party meeting, Ding Ming was not qualified to sit there because of his identity. He could only stand quietly behind Dai. The Marshal had always been straightforward, so he was too lazy to be courteous. His first sentence was extremely direct. "Miss Dai, I'm a boorish man. I don't know how to beat around the bush. I'll be frank. Our boss also wants the reagent in Brother Long's hands. He's willing to pay 6 million star coins for it." Huang Long did not respond. Sitting here, he was the seller. Now that the other 2 families wanted something from him, He was waiting for the two families to state their conditions. In any case, the highest bidder would get it. Dai, he was already prepared for the marshal's sudden attack. She habitually tapped her finger on the cup and looked at the other party with a half-smile. Then you can pay. I don't want a reagent. What do you think? The marshal and Huang Long were immediately stunned. Previously, Fong Tu had advised you not to move and insisted on meeting to negotiate. Why did you shrink back when you met? What is the meaning of this? Huang Long picked up a wet towel and wiped his hands. His expression was slightly awkward. Miss Dai, I think there is some misunderstanding between you and Brother Hu. Chapter 159. There's no misunderstanding. Dai Yi's eyes were fixed on her 10 fingers. She didn't even look at the commander. She had her pride. After all, as the representative sent by the Dai family, to be willing to lower herself to discuss matters with them was giving them a lot of face. What was the sneak attack army? How could they be compared to the Dai family? In the end, you opened your mouth and asked for 6 million star coins. Who are you trying to impress with this attitude? Hearing her short and straightforward answer, the commander understood. This delicate girl looked young, but in reality, she wasn't as simple as they thought. She was very experienced in this aspect. If you want to collude with Huang Long to raise the price, then I'll let you have it. This was a classic example of taking a step back in order to advance. The commander's expression also became awkward. Miss Dai, actually, our boss isn't determined to get it. Brother Long knows that our boss has been stuck at the beginner war venerable level for many years and hasn't been able to break through. Therefore, he thinks this reagent is an opportunity. Dai, he lowered her lily-white hands and glanced at him. He thinks it's an opportunity. I also think it's an opportunity. I'm afraid Commander Huang also thinks it's an opportunity. As for how this opportunity should be grasped, it's still up to the surprise army. This meant that she wanted to see how he would compromise. The commander said seriously, Miss Dai, a straightforward person doesn't resort to insinuations. Our surprise army might not be much in the eyes of your Dai family, but I'm confident that our transportation ability in outer space is quite good. Once the Heavenly Wolf mercenary group cooperates with us, the benefits will be great. You might find it strange, but there's very little cooperation between armies. I'm not afraid to tell you the truth. This year, Extreme Heaven Corporation has suspended our cooperation on the K-Star system. Their financial resources are already very tight. Dai turned her head and glanced at Ding Meng. Ding Meng immediately replied in a low voice, yes. Dai was silent for a while before saying, Commander Huang, the captain and I have talked before. He expressed your intentions very clearly. Huang Long smiled and said, what do you think, Miss Dai? Dai shook her head. If this was any other time, I definitely wouldn't agree to your request. Huang Long was still smiling, but his gaze on Dai flashed with an almost imperceptible chill. Dai suddenly changed his tone. However, now that I've come to the Flying Star City in person, there must be a conclusion to this matter. Huang Long's eyes narrowed. Miss Dai, do you have a better idea? Dai stared at him and said, I can agree to your request, but I also have my own conditions. Huang Long appeared to be very respectful. Please speak. Dai said, every Skywolf army caravan that passes through the space station and sells their products to the Federation, I want 10% of the profits. As for your cooperation with the sneak attack army, what exactly is the cooperation? I'm not interested in knowing, and it has nothing to do with me. Not only did Huang Long not get angry, his smile became even more cheerful. Miss Dai really has the demeanor of a great family. To be able to cooperate with someone as straightforward as Miss Dai, I'm willing to hand over that bottle of reagent with both hands. However, the smile on Dai Yi's face disappeared at this moment. Commander Huang, don't be in a hurry to thank me. You don't have to give me the commission. Just let the Green Arrow Army collect it for me. Pa, pa, pa. Huang Long simply clapped his hands. Brilliant. Truly brilliant. Miss Dai is still the most considerate, considering every aspect of the problem. Huang Long, admire you. Dai Yi's beautiful eyes flashed. I just don't know what you think, Commander Huang. Huang Long was still smiling cheerfully, without any trace of anger. I just said that I'm willing to hand over that bottle of reagent to Miss Dai with both hands. This time, it was Dai Yi's turn to be stunned. She couldn't believe that the other party would actually agree so readily. Are you serious? Huang Long didn't even say anything, directly waving his hand towards the shuttle car in the distance. In less than 3 minutes, Lu Fei walked over with a tray. On the tray was an exquisite little metal box. The box was also printed with the Federation's unique longsword logo. Beside the box was a small key-shaped chip. The password is inside the chip. Miss Dai can examine the things inside. Huang Long smiled. There's no need to examine it. This is a genuine reagent. Dai noticed that the protective layer on the surface of the chip hadn't been opened, which proved that the box had never been opened in the first place. This Huang Long was smart enough to know that it was a rare commodity, so he didn't even touch it. Huang Long clapped his hands. All right, we've finished talking business. Let's talk about something happy. Miss Dai, would Brotherton give me some face tonight? Let's get together for a drink and talk about our friendship. Dai really wanted to say no, but now that she had taken all the benefits, she couldn't bring herself to say it. If she didn't open her mouth, Ding Meng would be even less likely to open his mouth. I hope Miss Dai can stay for a few more days. There are still many interesting places to visit in Flying Star City. I hope Miss Dai can return satisfied. Huang Long stood up and extended his hand. Dai could only shake his hand and thank him. Thank you for your hospitality, Commander Huang. Huang Long smiled and said, that's what I should do. I wish Miss Dai a pleasant time. We'll meet again tonight. After that, he and the marshal walked side by side towards the villa's gate. For some reason, Dai felt that there was something hidden behind Huang Long's polite and humble smile. It wasn't until the Heavenly Bird shuttle lifted off and Lu Fei left that Dai, he turned her gaze to Ding Meng. Do you have a deep grudge with that marshal who? Ding Meng stared at the blue sky. The shuttle had already turned into a dot of light, but his tone was especially depressed. I used to be a coolie. I almost died at his hands. I'm sorry. Dai immediately showed a sad expression. I didn't know you had such an experience. As a first-class citizen of the Federation, she was definitely aware of the humanitarian exile policy of the Holy Grail Federation. Coolie was the common name for laborers. A laborer sent to an exile planet was basically waiting for death. The number of people who made it out alive was minuscule. But Ding Meng was standing here now. Dai could already imagine how difficult Ding Meng's past must have been. He must have struggled painfully on the edge of life and death. It was not difficult to understand why Ding Meng was always dressed in rags. At this moment, she could not help but change her impression of Ding Meng. Actually, I personally don't agree with this exile policy. I hope you don't mind. Ding Meng retracted his gaze and looked at her calmly. Miss Dai, now is not the time to talk about coolies. I don't know if you have the same feeling, but there seems to be something wrong with this Huang Long Dai, he asked curiously. You feel it too? Ding Meng said, I don't really understand what you're talking about just now. I only know one thing. No matter what you do, if things go too smoothly, it may not be a good thing in the end. Dai fell silent, carefully thinking about Ding Meng's words. It was not some profound philosophy, but as long as she felt it made sense, she would seriously consider it. Are you worried that Huang Long will go back on his word? Dai could not help but ask. Ding Meng turned around and walked towards the villa. My mission this time is to protect your safety. I'm only worried about this problem. If you really want to ask me what I think, my advice is to leave this place as soon as possible. Ding Meng's premonition had always been correct. At this moment, inside the shuttle car, flying in the sky, the marshal in the passenger seat asked with a livid face, Brother Long, don't tell me you're really going to give the reagent to her this time? Huang Long no longer had any trace of smile on his face. His expression was extremely gloomy, and his shrill voice sounded extremely strange inside the car. Give it to her? What a joke. I'll let her enjoy it for a while, and then she'll obediently return it to me tonight. The marshal hesitated. She's the representative of the Dai family. Do you want to force her? Is that appropriate? Huang Long sneered. The Dai family used to send their young masters to our Flying Star City. Since when was it her turn? This Dai E is only the eldest daughter of the fifth branch of the Dai family. She doesn't even have a status. I really don't know what she's so smug about. His eyes were blazing with anger. In fact, what he was really angry about was not Dai Yi's status, but the conditions she had offered. On the surface, it seemed that the two families had profited from the cooperation with the Heavenly Wolf Alliance and the Federation's lowering of the transportation tax. But in fact, the benefits they had earned had been taken back by Green Arrow. Compared to the continuous income of 10% profit, the value of the reagent was nothing. This was what Huang Long was angry about. If he had really agreed to Dai Yi's request, not to mention how the general commander would punish him, just the large and small forces in outer space would laugh at him like a monkey. They had spent a lot of effort to get the reagent, and they had a good hand, but they had played it like this. How shameless would they be? Even the galactic pirates would probably wink at him. Commander Huang, aren't you guys usually so arrogant? But in the end, you were still punished by Green Arrow. What J8 Heavenly Wolf Army? What 2B Army? He did not want to hear these words, even if he was beaten to death. The Marshal muttered, "That's true. We have no reason to fear this Dai E. In the end, she's nothing more than an errand girl. She doesn't have the final say in the family." Huang Long gritted his teeth and said, "I treated her politely and treated her with the utmost courtesy. Who knew that this bitch would come up with such a shameless condition? She's going too far. Even the Federation's patrol fleet's captain wouldn't dare treat our Heavenly Wolf Army with such disrespect. Who does she think she is?" The Marshal was also angered by Huang Long's curses. "That's right. Neither of them are good people. Ding Meng was clearly a laborer under my jurisdiction, but she insisted on lying and saying that he was her cousin. She didn't even have the slightest sincerity in negotiating. This time, I finally met this Ding Meng. I can't let him escape alive. That Dai E is the same. You better think of a way to chase her away." Huang Long recalled the scene of him shaking hands with Dai E. He did not know why, but when he saw Dai Yi's beautiful legs and silk stockings, a ball of fire inexplicably rose in his stomach. "This time, I'll definitely teach her an unforgettable lesson," Huang Long said hatefully. Chapter 160. The banquet was still held on the first floor of the villa. A luxurious long table had been pulled out, and exquisite dishes were served up like flowing water. In addition, all the lights on the first floor were turned on, and the hall was illuminated in gold and jade. Facing a table full of delicious food, Ding Meng had no interest in eating. For some reason, he suddenly thought of old Yu's house on planet TT-12. The ordinary village food had been so delicious, and it had aroused his appetite. Of course, he didn't have this kind of mood because he didn't like the people around him, but because he was used to it. He was used to running around in exile, used to the living environment of the lower class, and was not used to this kind of high-class life. He and Dai sat side by side, and opposite them were Huang Long and the Marshal. These two fellows had been chatting and laughing the whole time, talking about Meteor City and the interesting things about the mercenaries. Dai listened with great interest. It was rare for her to leave the Federation and travel outside. This time, it was her mother who had fought for this opportunity for her. Her situation was actually a bit similar to Chu Xiaoqing's. She felt that the things she learned in school were limited, and if she wanted to grow up, she had to go to outer space to gain experience. Although she was interested, Ding Meng didn't have the heart to think about it. His attention was completely focused on the surroundings of the villa. He spread out his telekinesis vision. Through the energy fluctuations he sensed, he found that there were a total of 6 intermediate warriors, 12 beginner warriors, and 30 advanced origin ability users guarding the villa's gate and backyard. Most of them were of the thermal and ice element. 2 of the intermediate warriors were wearing the uniform of the surprise attack mercenary group. They were obviously here to protect the Marshal. After all, the Marshal was an ordinary human soldier, and he still needed origin ability users to ensure his safety. From today until now, Little Rascal hadn't made a sound. Because of its level 2 exploration ability, Little Rascal had secretly infiltrated the basic system of the Suanio transport ship on the way here, copied most of the data in the database, and then decrypted it. Little Rascal's exploration ability was also affected by Ding Ming's origin ability and telekinesis, especially telekinesis. Currently, the effective range of his telekinesis vision was 500 meters. Ding Ming could see and hear everything, but Little Rascal could analyze the composition of materials, decrypt complex terrain, calculate movement routes, and other more advanced functions. This was also the reason why his telekinesis vision had to be activated for a long time. Misty, allow me to propose another toast to you. Thank you for coming here personally to facilitate this matter. Huang Long was still smiling, full of sincerity. What he drank was wine, and Dai would not drink in this kind of situation, so he used calming tea instead. Ding Ming also drank calming tea. However, Huang Long and the marshal did not respect him because they had already been rejected by Ding Ming before. You respect me, but I won't drink it. If you don't respect me, I won't drink it. Therefore, the atmosphere of the banquet was not as pleasant as imagined. The banquet did not go on for long. Around 7 p.m., Huang Long and the others left the villa and drove to the city. The Mystic Bird transport ship was parked in the empty space outside the villa. Early the next morning, this ship would send Ding Ming and Feng Luo to the transport ship in the sky. Then, it would depart from the space station of Qiming No. 1 and send them to the coordinates in outer space that the two of them had designated. At that time, the spaceship of the Green Arrow Corps would naturally come to welcome them back. Logically speaking, this mission should have ended without a hitch. However, Ding Ming was not someone who was easy to deal with. This bro's time was precious, so how could he not take advantage of this opportunity? Therefore, he did not want anything else. He specifically asked Lu Fei to pack the Jifan brand calming tea, a total of 100 sticks of various flavors, into an entire box, and then compressed it into his own curved collar backpack. By the time he finished these chores, it was already 7 p.m. He had already gone upstairs to rest, and Ding Ming also returned to his own room. This time, he did not absorb any origin energy. Instead, he lay down comfortably and entered his own consciousness space. Since flying all the way here from the International Space Station of planet TT-12, Little Rascal's database had been updated with a lot of information. In particular, the Kajia server, the dark web of the International Space Network, and the battle armor knowledge had been greatly supplemented. There was a need for him to calm down and study. Hard knowledge could be instantly transferred into his brain through Little Rascal's replication function. But there were some things that could not be replicated. A typical example would be the fierce battle with Lan Bing, as well as the attack on the Jiahua and Tyrol battle armor on the Falcon, which led to the final defeat. Ding Ming and Little Rascal repeatedly watched the video recordings, discussing the various problems they had encountered during the battle and summarizing their experiences. When the clock struck 14 p.m., Xiao AI's cold voice suddenly rang out without any warning. ACT 5570, I just discovered an abnormality in your body. Ding Ming and Little Rascal, who were in the middle of a heated discussion, both jumped in fright. What's going on? Xiao AI said. According to my analysis, I discovered that your blood contains a harmful chemical. Little Rascal was shocked. That can't be right. Even I couldn't detect it. How did you discover it? Xiao AI. Xiao AI said. Of course your auxiliary system can't detect it. How can it compare to my core system's functions? Little Rascal did not argue with her this time, because Xiao AI's report was far too frightening. Why don't I feel anything at all? Ding Ming was also a little surprised. An origin energy user's body had undergone strict refinement. As long as there was a problem with any part of the body, the circulation of origin energy would be impeded accordingly. Most origin energy users' basic cultivation techniques began from the heart, and the first starting point was to modify the blood molecules. From a certain perspective, having harmful substances in one's blood was actually the same as being poisoned. Origin energy users were immune to the majority of poisons, so it was even more impossible for them to be completely unaware of being poisoned. Xiao AI's powerful ability was not just a boast. Ding Ming's vision in the consciousness space changed a second later, and he saw the image of a slender white diamond appear out of thin air. Xiao AI explained, "This is an inherent blood molecule in your body." Following that, a black mist slowly enveloped the image. The black mist seemed to be formed by countless small bugs, and the bugs were all scrambling to devour the smooth surface of the diamond. Little Rascal's tone also became unpleasant. "This is poison, and it's a very powerful poison." However, the image quickly displayed its powerful defensive abilities. The black bugs were unable to bite through it at all. Instead, the surface of the mirror began to emit a strong light that instantly vaporized the bugs, and the image returned to normal. Little Rascal said, "This is the effect of the K-virus. It's immune to almost all poisons." Ding Ming, when we first modified you, the first step was to modify your immune system in this area. Xiao AI explained, "This is the dynamic abnormality report that the detection system generated for me just now. This is the entire process. ACT 5570, this is also the reason why you didn't feel anything. It's because the K-virus automatically defends itself and has already cured you of the poison." Little Rascal asked curiously, "What kind of poison is this? Even I can't analyze its composition." Xiao AI's tone was also abnormally grim. "I don't have any relevant comparison samples in my database, but I can infer that this is no ordinary poison. For a poison to be able to affect an origin ability user, it must have been tempered with origin energy or modified through some other method. The one who inflicted the poison must be a mutation-type origin ability user. There's a 65% chance that the poison came from the Devourer world. The mutation-type origin ability user was a branch of the biotype origin ability user. The genes of this origin ability user were also modified, and they could adapt to all kinds of harsh environments. They could also withstand non-explosive and non-hard damage. They could be considered a rather obscure existence. There were tens of millions of species in the universe, and not all of them were beneficial to humans. Most of them were harmful. For example, the monsters of the Devourer world would poison you with a single bite. There are also all kinds of poisons, and their effects were naturally different. The first war between the Holy Grail Federation and the Devourer world had been like this. Humans simply couldn't resist these fierce poisons. Thus, there were many talented origin ability users who volunteered to test the poisons themselves. In the end, they came up with all kinds of detoxification methods. Thus, these pioneers passed down a line of origin ability users, mutation-type origin ability users. However, most of the mutation-type origin ability users were doctors. Very few of them were combat-type origin ability users. Most importantly, mutation-type origin ability users didn't rely on martial arts. Instead, they relied on their own physical attributes and secret manuals. After all, poisons weren't created through cultivation, but through research. Of course, if a mutation-type origin ability user were to become combat-type origin ability users, then they would be a rather ridiculous existence. In battle, such an opponent would be very troublesome. While Little Rascal and Xiao AI were analyzing the situation, they didn't notice that Ding Ming's expression was extremely ugly. He hadn't left the vicinity of the villa for the past 6 days. So where had the poison come from? Little Rascal finally reacted. "There's an 80% chance that the poison came from your dinner tonight." During the banquet, Ding Ming hadn't eaten anything and had only drunk 4 cups of calming tea. The poison had actually dissolved in the tea, and even his telekinesis couldn't detect it. This really couldn't be blamed on Ding Ming's carelessness or his weakness. It was just that his opponent's methods were too powerful. He hadn't expected Huang Long to be so insidious. Ding Ming suddenly muttered to himself, "I knew this mission wouldn't be so easy." Little Rascal and Xiao AI immediately became vigilant. They had also sensed the abnormality outside. At this moment, Ding Ming had completely exited the consciousness space. His telekinesis was focused on the first floor of the villa. The lights in the main hall had all been extinguished. The workers had already left at 22 p.m. However, in the darkness, a black shadow was silently drifting up the stairs, just like a ghost that had suddenly appeared in the middle of the night. It was a very disturbing sight. Little Rascal sighed. It seems that we've misjudged him. This guy doesn't even make any sound of footsteps. He's actually an expert who can freely control his origin energy. Xiao AI also began to warn the others. Be careful. His origin energy index is as high as 33,000. Don't underestimate him. Chapter 161. The hall on the first floor was still dark. The ghost walked very slowly in the darkness, but the slower it was, the more frightening it was. It was as if this person was the owner of this villa and was strolling through his own home. When he reached the corridor leading to Ding Meng's room, he stopped in front of the door as expected. His figure suddenly blurred and then disappeared into thin air. If it weren't for Ding Meng's telekinesis vision, he might have really believed that this was a ghost from the spirit world. With another swoosh, ghost figure appeared in the middle of Ding Meng's room. He looked around and saw that Ding Meng was lying on the bed and sleeping soundly under the blanket. Only then did he nod in satisfaction. Little did he know that his instant transmission martial skill had already alarmed Ding Meng, Little Rascal, and Xiao AI. This was the signature martial skill of the light element transient steps. However, this person's use of it had reached the point of perfection. He had most likely surpassed the first 3 stages. Xiao AI said in a low voice the 4th stage, the deity realm. Her conclusion was basically correct. However, if this person was also a poisoner, then he was a light element and mutation element origin ability user. Such a person definitely couldn't be weak and couldn't be underestimated. However, what truly shocked Ding Meng was that this person was none other than the female soldier who had been serving them for the past few days, Lu Fei. The 3 of them hadn't realized that this extremely ordinary Lu Fei was also an origin ability user. Moreover, she had hidden herself very well. In truth, it was normal that Ding Meng hadn't noticed. There were only 2 possibilities. The first was that Lu Fei's origin energy foundation was also very solid. She could control energy fluctuations and hide her aura. The second was that the difference in strength between them wasn't that great. If a war sovereign or war master were to stay here, they would probably have noticed her abnormality on the first day they entered the villa. What is she trying to do? Little Rascal observed the other party with interest. Lu Fei didn't seem to have any intention of sneak attacking Ding Meng. She walked to the table and gently picked up Ding Meng's ancient sword. Then, she slowly pulled it out. As soon as the sword was unsheathed, the dark golden brilliance immediately lit up the room, threatening everyone's eyelids. The sword light also illuminated Lu Fei's excited face. She carefully observed the sword and clicked her tongue in praise. It is indeed a rare weapon. Someone actually said that this is a child's toy. What kind of eyesight is that? She suddenly put the sword back into its scabbard and placed it on the table. She looked around again, as if she was looking for something more valuable. Unfortunately, Ding Meng had always been poor, so there was nothing that caught her eye. Even when she saw Ding Meng's crewneck backpack, she didn't make a move because she knew that it contained a whole box of calming tea, which she had packed herself. After a long time, she looked at the sleeping Ding Meng and sighed softly. Little brother, seeing that I've served you for so many days, isn't it too much to let me have this sword? After saying this, she turned around and picked up the ancient sword. It looked like she was about to leave. However, at this moment, something strange happened. Her hand was clearly holding the scabbard, but the entire sword was fixed in the air, as if it had been enchanted. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't move it in the slightest. It was as if there was another invisible hand holding the sword and trying to snatch it from her. Lu Fei was shocked. She decisively let go of the scabbard, and the ancient sword whizzed back to the bed. When she looked up again, she saw that Ding Meng had sat up at some point. He used his telekinesis to control the ancient sword and put it back into his belt. Lu Fei was shocked. She couldn't help but cry out, "You weren't poisoned?" Ding Meng sneered. "You have a good eye. You actually know that this is a good sword." Lu Fei reacted quickly. She kicked off the edge of the bed with her boots and flew out of the window like a fish leaping over a dragon's gate. Her movements were as agile as Ding Ming's. Ding Ming wouldn't let her escape so easily. He also jumped up from the bed and jumped out of the window. In Ding Ming's vision, Lu Fei was clearly kneeling on one knee on the grass, but when he jumped down, she disappeared with a swoosh. However, this trick was useless against Ding Ming at this stage. Ding Ming fell, pounced, and then quickly bounced to the left with one hand. His whole body was in the air like a cannonball, while his other hand slashed at the distorted air in front of him. With a muffled bang, Lu Fei, who was in the state of Phantom of the Opera, was sent flying. She rolled on the ground and revealed her real body. She should be grateful to Ding Ming. He didn't use too much strength, otherwise his karate chop would have shattered her shoulder blade. After all, she just wanted to steal and didn't have any killing intent. Lu Fei's skills weren't bad. She knelt on one knee again, her eyes full of surprise. "You actually have such excellent strength. I really misjudged you." As soon as she finished speaking, she disappeared again with a swoosh. Then, she appeared in front of Ding Ming in the blink of an eye. Like a flying fox, a pair of steel claws popped out from the back of her hand. The claws flashed with a cold light as they clawed at Ding Ming's shoulder. Her speed was equally astonishing. This time, Ding Ming didn't dare to face her head-on. The moment the claws popped out, he saw a pink light dancing on the tip of the claws. His opponent's weapon was obviously poisoned. At the same time, it also confirmed Little Rascal and the others' guess. Lu Fei was most likely the poisoner. Ding Ming tiptoed and retreated backwards as light as a feather. Unfortunately, he was wrong this time. Lu Fei didn't want to attack his shoulder. The real killing intent was hidden under her palm. She suddenly opened her palm, and a large cloud of pink mist shot out from below. The pink mist directly enveloped Ding Ming. Cough, cough, cough. Ding Ming's violent coughs came from a mist. Lu Fei sighed softly. She rubbed her aching shoulder and slowly walked up. "Little brother, you look like you're only in your 20s. It's rare to see such good skills at such a young age. My source-devouring agent won't kill you. At most, it'll make you limp for 6 hours. I'm not letting you down." Something even more unexpected happened. A hand suddenly reached out from the mist and grabbed her throat at an unbelievable speed. It was as if she was being lifted off the ground. Ugh! Lu Fei's throat constricted and her face turned purple. She grabbed Ding Ming's wrist with her left hand and tried to pry it away. The steel claws on her right hand rose again and slashed at Ding Ming's shoulder. She was fast, but Ding Ming was faster. His karate chop hit her wrist like lightning. This time, Ding Ming didn't hold back. "I gave you a chance, but you didn't cherish it." There was a cracking sound. This was clearly the sound of her wrist bones breaking. Ding Ming then gave Lu Fei a side kick. Lu Fei was finally sent flying. She landed in the middle of the flower bed in the courtyard, and the potted plants immediately shattered into pieces. This time, Lu Fei didn't have any hope of counterattacking. She struggled to get up, her eyes filled with unconcealable shock. Ding Ming looked at her coldly and slowly walked toward her. How did he look like he had been poisoned at all? "You?" Lu Fei was shocked. "You're actually immune to the strengthened version of the source-devouring agent. Just who are you?" Her shock was reasonable. Based on the exchange just now, she was certain that Ding Ming was a thermodynamic origin ability user and not a biochemical origin ability user. Since when could a thermodynamic origin ability user resist such a powerful poison? Ding Ming said, "Seeing that you don't have any killing intent, I can let you go. Answer a few questions honestly, and I'll let you go." "You want to kill me?" Lu Fei suddenly laughed coldly. "You're dreaming." Her figure suddenly became blurry. This time, it wasn't a light speed-type martial skill. Instead, her entire body turned into a wisp of purple smoke. The purple smoke drifted toward the villa's main entrance like a viper. This kind of strange martial skill was simply unheard of. This isn't a martial skill. It's very likely some kind of secret technique, Little Rascal concluded. Lu Fei's speed after turning into mist really wasn't just for show. In the pitch-black night sky, this wisp of purple smoke completely merged with the darkness. If you didn't look carefully, it would be very difficult to track its flight path. It was just like a wisp of smoke that scattered in all directions, completely disappearing without a trace. 10 minutes later, under a large boulder by the beach, the formless mist once again gathered. The mist grew thicker and thicker until it finally turned into a mirror image of a person. Lu Fei leaned against the boulder and gasped for breath. She didn't dare relax in the slightest. She pulled out test tubes of various sizes from her pocket, opened them, and poured them into her mouth. Ding Ming's palm strike had broken her wrist, and his following kick had injured her internal organs. Just relying on healing agents wasn't enough. Thus, she pulled out an exquisite little box. After tearing open the packaging, she swallowed the small white pill inside. She normally couldn't bear to use these precious life-saving medicines. She would only use them for emergency treatment in a situation like this. However, when she felt that her injuries had been greatly alleviated, her heart sank again. It was as if she had fallen into an ice cellar. This was because she saw that on the beach in the distance, there was a person walking in her direction with light steps. Who else could this person be other than Ding Ming? I don't think I'm dreaming. Ding Ming stopped 5 meters away from her. Lu Fei revealed a bitter smile. The person who's dreaming is me. She really couldn't have imagined this, even in her dreams. The escape technique she was so proud of was completely useless against Ding Ming's psychic vision. I'm not afraid of you running away fast. You'll eventually stop. Even if you run to the ends of the earth, I'll still be able to find you. Lu Fei suddenly sighed. I admit defeat. Ding Ming sneered. I gave you 2 chances, but you insisted on running away. You can't blame me for this. He walked forward as he spoke. Lu Fei quickly raised her hands in surrender. Wait, didn't you want to ask me a question just now? I promise I'll answer you honestly now. Ding Ming said, there's no need to ask. I've basically figured out a lot of things. Lu Fei suddenly became nervous. She had already seen that this young man, who was usually serious, was not a person who would easily change his mind. If he really wanted to kill her, he probably wouldn't say it to scare her. If he wanted to do it, he would do it directly. Who would talk nonsense with her? Ding Ming's hand blade had already formed. The surface of the hand blade was faintly wrapped in a layer of extremely hot air. Even she could feel the heat coming from it. Chapter 162. Just as Lu Fei was gathering her origin energy and preparing to make a final stand, that murderous heat mysteriously disappeared. When she raised her head again, she discovered that Ding Ming had already retracted his right hand. He had a strange expression on his face. You've been here since the first day we arrived at Meteor City. I've observed that you've also been staying in the villa for the past 6 days. You haven't gone anywhere at all. Yes. Lu Fei tried her best to appear calm on the outside, but she was actually concentrating on speeding up her origin. The young man in front of her was definitely not as easy to talk to as she had imagined. She would stall for as long as she could. Ding Ming said, You also followed us here from the space station on Planet 1. Butcher was the one who specifically recommended you to serve us. Lu Fei grew even more nervous. What are you trying to say? Ding Ming said, I'm thinking of a problem. Butcher can't possibly be like us and think that you're just an ordinary soldier. He must know some things about you. At the very least, he should know that you're an origin energy user. Lu Fei did not say anything else. Although this kid in front of her looked young, he actually possessed a calm and meticulous mind that far surpassed that of a normal person. Ding Ming continued. This means that he already predicted that something like this would happen tonight and had already made arrangements and countermeasures from the very beginning. Lu Fei said, So what if he did? Ding Ming said, There's another problem here. The Celestial Wolf Army couldn't possibly have gone through so much trouble just for the sake of this sword on my body, right? Although this sword isn't bad, it's not worth all this trouble. At the very least, before I came here, none of you knew that I was carrying this sword. He repeatedly emphasized the sword. Actually, Lu Fei also understood that Ding Ming was suspecting the Celestial Wolf Army's goal. Ding Ming continued, I've always been curious. The Green Arrow Army's mission was just a reagent, but someone just had to steal it and sell it to the Celestial Wolf Army. Then, the Celestial Wolf Army didn't use this reagent to make any demands of the Green Arrow army. Instead, it was Misty who came here to negotiate with the Celestial Wolf army. If my guess is correct, Huanglong's goal is to obtain what the Celestial Wolf army wants from the Dai family. He paused for a moment, then asked, why didn't Huanglong directly go to the Shandai family? I'm guessing that a Federation family, like the Dai family, wouldn't care about these mercenaries in outer space. I remember Miss Dai said this during the day. Normally, she wouldn't agree to Huanglong's request, but Huanglong knows that Green Arrow has a close relationship with the Dai family. So, Huanglong has to think of a way to force Green Arrow to seek help from the Dai family. Lu Fei sneered. As far as I can remember, the number of words you've said in the past 6 days was less than what you've said now. Ding Ming also sneered. I did talk a little too much, but it made me understand some key points. Lu Fei asked, what is it? Ding Ming said, Skywolf didn't dare snatch Green Arrow's reagent, so Nightmare did it for him. I heard that Nightmare does things for money, and I also heard that Nightmare doesn't like to steal things, but he loves to steal things. Whenever he sees something valuable, he can't control his itchy hands. This was also a topic that Bai Yu and Ding Ming had unintentionally talked about on the way here. Nightmare could be considered a celebrity in this area. When she heard the word Nightmare, Lu Fei's right eye couldn't help but twitch a few times. Ding Ming suddenly stared at her closely. You seem to fit these characteristics. Lu Fei sneered. If I were Nightmare, you would have died just now. Her sophistry was useless against Ding Ming. During his battle with Lan Bing, he had already suffered a loss like this once, and this loss had been due to a biochemical technique that could preserve one's looks. With Ding Ming's current cultivation, it was still very difficult for him to see through the disguise of a technique that could preserve one's looks. However, with Little Rascal's help, he could more or less see some clues. For example, after he withdrew his telekinesis vision, he could see that the origin energy fluctuations on the other party's face were exceptionally strong and strange. This proved that the other party's face was very likely cultivated with origin energy. The reason he had been so long-winded just now was to let Little Rascal calculate the results. Little Rascal's results didn't disappoint him. This Lu Fei isn't using her real face. There's an 88% chance that she's cultivating a technique that can preserve one's looks, which is basically the same as Lan Bing's. Ding Ming looked at Lu Fei and smiled. It's fine if you don't admit it. I'll slap you right now, and you'll be done for. Ding Ming didn't hesitate when he said he would hit. His hand blade stirred up a new wave of heat, and he slapped her. Lu Fei didn't hesitate at all. She bounced up like a rabbit and rolled to the side. With a dull crash, Ding Ming's casual slap caused a 3-meter-tall boulder to collapse. It collapsed as quickly as flowing water, and in an instant, it was reduced to a pile of foggy sand. If someone were to say that Ding Ming's origin energy cultivation wasn't at the level of an advanced warrior, Lu Fei would dare to bet that person that she would eat shit before jumping off a building. At this moment, the Lu Fei by the beach was just like Lan Bing. Her body, face, and hair were all changing at a speed visible to the naked eye. In just a few seconds, she had turned into a completely different person. What made her even sharper than Lan Bing was that she hadn't turned into another woman, but a man. Moreover, Ding Ming recognized this man as well. It was Butcher. They looked exactly the same. Even Little Rascal couldn't help but be stunned. Wah, this guy. Even the wrinkles on his face are the same. The simulation is more than 95% accurate. Ding Ming, you should learn this move too. Turn into a beautiful woman and go on dates with yourself when you're bored. After Lu Fei transformed, even her voice was no different for Butcher's. Brat, you actually forced me to reveal my true form. Ding Ming stared at her coldly. I'm afraid this isn't your true form either, is it? Lu Fei said proudly. No one has ever seen my true form. Her answer was undoubtedly an admission of her identity as a nightmare. Ding Ming sneered. I still only need one slap to see your true form. Lu Fei suddenly opened her hand, revealing a glowing capsule crystal. I'll swallow this poison. Even if you beat me to death, you won't be able to see my true form. Ding Ming was silent for a moment. Then, he said, I believe that. However, there's no benefit for me in killing you. Lu Fei was also silent. Then, she said, the calming tea you and I drank during dinner was mixed with my origin devouring agent. This poison is produced in the devouring world and has been refined with origin energy. Without an extremely high cultivation base, it's very difficult to detect it. The poison I sprayed on you afterwards was a strengthened version of the origin devouring agent. That's already the third generation of the origin devouring agent. Can you tell me why? Why were you fine after being poisoned? Ding Ming wasn't stupid enough to tell her the truth. There's something you haven't understood. Right now, I have the upper hand. You don't have the right to ask questions. You should answer me. Was it Huang Long who ordered you to poison me? Lu Fei gritted her teeth. It wasn't, but the negotiations this morning fell apart, so I had no choice but to continue with my mission. Ding Ming stared at her. Then what was your mission? Lu Fei said, under normal circumstances, the poison should have completely assimilated into your blood molecules after 6 hours and spread throughout your body, preventing your origin from operating. I counted. You drank 4 cups, and you drank 6 cups. In another 2 hours, she should have fallen into a deep sleep. After that, I would have carried you onto a transport ship and sent you out of the Jifan star system. After that, I would have left the reagent behind, and we would have returned. Ding Ming's cold smile became even more intense. Huang Long is quite smart. He knows that once we leave, it'll be difficult for us to return. Once Miss Dai wakes up and realizes that the reagent is gone, she won't be able to say anything. In any case, the Heavenly Wolf Corps didn't use force against her. In the end, the Green Arrow Corps might really have to pay 6 million star coins to redeem the reagent. You might even be able to get a sizable commission from that, right? Nightmare or Lu Fei? How should I address you? Lu Fei sighed. You're so young, but your mind is so sharp. To be honest, I didn't want to accept Huang Long's mission at first, but I've been lacking money lately, so you took the risk? Ding Ming stared at her. Lu Fei shook her head, her expression somewhat bitter. There are some things that you don't understand. Ding Ming said, I only know one thing. You're not my match. Even Lu Fei had to admit that the reason Nightmare was able to come and go from one star system to another without leaving a trace was because she had a few divine skills that she was most proud of: poison, transformation, light speed, and life-saving. The reasoning was simple. Her poison was undetectable, and her transformation allowed her to hide her identity. Light element origin ability users were fast, and there were not many ways to escape. However, these divine skills were completely useless in front of Ding Ming. They were completely restrained. She could not beat him in a fight, and she could not outrun him either. Of course, if she really went all out, Ding Ming might not be able to kill her in a short period of time, but they were both exhausting each other. She did not know what would happen to Ding Ming in the end, but she knew that she would definitely be exhausted to death. Most importantly, she could feel that Ding Ming did not have any killing intent towards her. Thus, she said, I'll leave this place immediately. I won't participate in this matter anymore, and I don't want the money. If you let me go, I promise that you'll repay me in the future. Ding Ming stared at her. Give me your wristband. Lu Fei was very straightforward. Without saying anything else, she took off her wristband and tossed it to him. Once the wristband left her hand, it would be impossible for Lu Fei to contact Huang Long in a short period of time. Ding Ming waved his hand. You can leave now. Let's forget about tonight's matter. Lu Fei did not move. Instead, she took a deep breath. I already said that I didn't want to take this mission in the first place. After I earned this kind of money, I felt ashamed. You poisoned her with your own ability. It's not shameful. Ding Ming replied calmly. Lu Fei's expression became somewhat bitter, but in the end, she did not say anything. Instead, she turned around and slowly walked towards the other end of the beach. However, after taking 2 steps, she stopped and said without looking back, You've been out for too long. You better go back quickly. If Huang Long sends Miss Dai to the transport ship now, you can forget about getting your reagents back. Ding Ming looked at her back and said quietly, Thanks for the reminder. Chapter 163. At the same time, 5 shuttle cars were parked neatly on the lawn of the villa. All the lights in the villa were turned on. Surrounded by a large group of mercenaries, Huang Long walked into the hall on the first floor with his head held high. He had no choice. He couldn't let Dai Yi take the reagent away in such a humiliating way. He had no choice but to send Dai Yi and Ding Ming away. I can't mess with you, so I'll send you away, right? A soldier ran down the stairs and reported, Brother Long, that Ding Ming has disappeared. Miss Le Fay can't be contacted either. Huang Long frowned. He had promised the commander that he would take care of Ding Ming, but Ding Ming had disappeared. Where could he have gone? Where's Miss Dai? Huang Long asked again. The soldier immediately replied, Miss Dai is in her room. Huang Long waved his hand and said, Everyone, pay attention. Guard the courtyard well. If you see anyone with the surname Ding, capture him. Everyone, wait for me on the first floor. I'll go up and ask Miss Dai to come down. Actually, Dai had already heard his voice, but she was lying on the bed and couldn't move at all. She had noticed that something was wrong at 23 o'clock. First, she felt dizzy, then her limbs felt weak, and then her chest felt tight and nauseous. These symptoms had only appeared when she was still an ordinary person. After becoming an origin ability user, they hadn't appeared even once. After she circulated her origin ability energy, she was clear that she had been tricked this time. The origin ability energy in her body was extremely sluggish, as if her blood had been injected with super glue. It was completely stuck, and she couldn't raise her speed at all. In such a situation, she would normally circulate her origin energy, but she was shocked to find that her origin energy was also in the same situation. The origin energy's rotation was gradually slowing down, and there were signs of it stopping. She still didn't know that she had been poisoned. She thought that it was a mutation in her body, but when she reached 0 o'clock, her origin energy had completely stopped. Her whole body felt weak, and she couldn't even sit up. An indescribable drowsiness slowly invaded her eyes. Actually, she was still aware at this time. She had already noticed that there was movement in the room next door. The movement quickly moved from the second floor to the courtyard downstairs, and there seemed to be the sound of fighting. She guessed that Ding Ming must have been fighting with someone. The energy fluctuations from both sides were particularly strong, especially the heat-type energy. The intensity of its eruption was far greater than hers. If she had shouted, Ding Ming might not have chased after Le Fay. The problem was that she could not tell if this strong heat belonged to Ding Ming or not. It would be bad if it was not. While she was hesitating, Ding Ming had already caught up with her. At this moment, the light in the room was turned on, and the door was gently closed by Huang Long. Huang Long walked to the front of the table and tossed the box containing the reagents in his hands. Miss Dai, I feel that it's best if you don't take this toy away. Your 10% profit, I feel that it's best not to let the Green Arrow Army take it. I'll send you back now. What do you think? It was difficult for Dai to even open her mouth to speak. Her body was extremely weak. She even twisted her body in an attempt to sit down. It would have been better if she did not twist her body, but once she did, Huang Long's eyes changed. Dai was practically paralyzed on the bed. Due to her rapid breathing, her chest was heaving up and down. Her galactic clothing was like an exquisite piece of aqua blue leather wrapped around her two towering breasts. It was difficult for people to look away when they shook. Her slender legs, which were covered in silk stockings, glowed seductively under the orange light. At this moment, Dai was like a defenseless city, but a strong enemy was already at the gates. Huang Long's breathing became rapid, and his expression slowly changed. His gentle face suddenly became extremely ferocious. The flames in his eyes almost sprayed onto Dai Yi's body, as if he wanted to crush her. Seeing Huang Long's greedy eyes, Dai knew that something terrible was about to happen. Unfortunately, she could barely speak. You, Huang Long smiled sinisterly. Miss Dai, before I leave, I think I still need to teach you a lesson for your rudeness today, so that you will never dare to come to Meteor City again. Only now did Dai feel true panic. She tried her best to curl up, but Huang Long had already pounced on her. He reached out and grabbed her left leg. With a rip, A large hole was torn in her silk stockings. Her white, jade-like skin was immediately exposed under the light. Huang Long could not help but exclaim, "TSK, TSK, this skin. In the future, if your Dai family comes looking for trouble with me, I'll accept it. Today, I'll enjoy myself first." Sometimes, a person's mind would be clouded by desire. Huang Long recklessly pounced on Dai Yi, trying to tear off her clothes. However, this kind of clothing was not easy to tear off. As he pounced on her, a military knife appeared in his hand. The blade was aimed directly at Dai Yi's chest. Who would have thought that Dai Yi would use all her strength to push forward and use the top of her head to block the military knife? She would rather commit suicide than be sullied. Huang Long was immediately shocked. He hurriedly withdrew his knife and moved to the side. As he moved to the side, Dai Yi fell off the bed. Her clothes were still cut open, and the clothes that should not have been exposed were also exposed. Huang Long's eyes lit up. "It's actually lace, my favorite." Before he could finish his sentence, he suddenly turned his head and stared at the window. He had not yet arrived, but an extremely violent wave of energy had already rushed in from outside the window. It was as if a gust of wind had just passed through, and its momentum was incomparably fierce. Huang Long was indeed worthy of being the vice commander of the Sky Wolf Army. In such a situation where he was blinded by lust, he actually made the most correct response. He instantly used his origin energy to create a thick layer of crystal hard armor on the outside to block the opponent's attack. In the next second, Ding Meng's flame energy rushing fist whistled through the air. With a boom, it hit him squarely in the chest. Huang Long first lowered his head to look at his chest, and then raised his head to look at Ding Meng. His face revealed a trace of a proud smile. This meant that although you came with a fierce momentum, your fist was weak. However, his smile quickly froze because the crystal hard armor shattered with a pa sound. The full force of the flame energy penetrating force had landed on his chest. His entire body flew backwards, smashing through the door and then falling into the hall on the first floor. With another boom, no one knew what he had smashed into, but there were cries of surprise everywhere. The mercenaries were immediately thrown into chaos. What was the situation in the room? Miss Dai was so strong, she could even send a middle-ranked warrior of the steel system flying. Dai Yi's situation must be even worse. Her hair was disheveled as she curled up on the sofa, panting weakly. Before Ding Meng could react, Little Rascal saw Dai Yi and immediately became excited. "Yo, where's Spring? Where's Spring? Spring is in that little kid's stockings. There's grass here, and there's even a cover here. Ding Meng, come here, come here." In fact, Ding Meng had also seen it. He was a little embarrassed at first, but when he saw Little Rascal singing and jumping around, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "You're still being naughty at a time like this." Xiao AI, however, maintained her usual solemn and cold expression. "ACT 5570, I've detected that the poison in Dai Yi's body is more than 80%. A few drops of blood won't be enough to quickly detoxify the poison. If you want to detoxify her, you'll need at least 10 milliliters of your blood." "I understand." Ding Meng quickly walked over and helped Dai Yi up. He said in a low voice, "Miss Dai, you've been poisoned. My blood can detoxify the poison in your body." As he spoke, he cut his index finger, and dark red blood quickly flowed out. But when he reached his finger to Dai Yi's mouth, he suddenly found that Dai Yi was glaring at him with a ferocious look. That look could kill. Ding Meng was puzzled. What's going on? She won't open her mouth? Little Rascal really wanted to slap himself on the head. "Oh, you idiot Ding Meng. Don't you know what this action means to a girl?" Ding Meng was even more puzzled. What was the meaning of this? Was this an impolite action? If she won't open her mouth, use your mouth to force the blood into her. "You'll have to be faster," Xiao AI urged. "Something's not right. I've detected a large energy fluctuation in the hall. They're going upstairs. Hurry up and act." "Okay." Ding Meng turned his head to look at Dai Yi again. "Miss Dai, the situation is urgent. Please forgive me if I offend you." After saying that, he began to suck on his index finger. A few seconds later, His mouth was full of blood. Ding Ming couldn't care less about Dai Yi's struggling and wriggling. She forcefully hugged him and kissed him in a simple and rough way. The detoxification this time was similar to the one he had used to detoxify Chu Shaoqing. The only difference was that last time, he had only lightly tasted her neck. This time he was serious. Ding Ming didn't care how Dai Yi struggled. He just spat out all the blood into her mouth. Dai Yi kept struggling, but as soon as Ding Ming's blood entered her mouth, she immediately felt a burning sensation. She immediately understood that Ding Ming was a thermodynamic origin ability user. This burning sensation quickly turned into a cooling sensation, reinvigorating her spirit. This feeling was very strange. When a man and a woman's lips touched, there would always be a connection between their souls. The intimacy between origin ability users would allow the other party to quickly sense the other party's strength. Dai Yi had never been in such close contact with a man before. She had been a little resistant at first, but now that a large amount of energy had suddenly surged in her body, her tongue was completely out of her control. It even actively explored Ding Ming's lips, trying to absorb all the energy that could detoxify the poison into her mouth. Little Rascal was finally happy. Hee, Ding Ming, don't lie this time. Let me see the data. Your heart rate is increasing 76 beats per minute. Your hormone secretion is increasing by 4%. Your breathing is increasing 11 times per minute, and your body temperature is increasing by 38.1 degrees. Oh, you're having a fever. After a long time, the blood ran out and their lips parted. Dai Yi felt a lot better, and the cool energy in her abdomen was spreading to her limbs and bones. However, her face was burning hot. She didn't dare to look at Ding Ming, and could only lower her head with a red face. Just now, the two of them had been intimate for less than 10 seconds, which made her feel both ashamed and amazed. In reality, Ding Ming didn't dare to look at her either. He had never been in such close contact with a member of the opposite sex before. During the process of contact, just now, he felt that some parts of his body had undergone very unsightly changes. Moreover, the first kiss of his life had been given to a virus in a very perverted way. Little Rascal's evaluation of this was only one word: awesome. Chapter 164. Miss Dai, how do you feel now? Ding Ming braced himself as he asked. Dai Yi was now able to speak. Much better. Ding Ming used his telekinesis to scan the area. 6 mercenaries with photoelectric guns had crept up to the second floor. The origin ability users in the center of the hall were gathered together, and Huang Long was running into the courtyard. As he ran, he pressed a button on his wristwatch. He was probably calling for reinforcements. Xiao AI decisively said, "We can't let him get away. If he attracts even more people, we'll be in big trouble. Get rid of them immediately." Ding Ming was also a little anxious. He squatted down and said, "Miss Dai, can you move quickly?" Dai Yi struggled to stand up. "I can barely walk." Ding Ming gritted his teeth and said, "I'll help you walk." "Wait." Dai Yi walked to the front of the bed and took a beige windbreaker from the clothes rack. She wrapped it around herself and covered the key parts of her chest. Then, with a flushed face, she said, "Let's go." Ding Ming was no longer embarrassed. He reached out and grabbed her slender waist. With one step, the two of them flew out of the door. As Ding Ming flew out of the second floor railing, the mercenaries in the hall quickly opened fire from all directions. Countless energy bullets rained down on Ding Ming like a meteor shower. With Ding Ming's current strength, these ordinary energy bullets were nothing more than tickles for him. However, Dai Yi had not recovered yet, so he naturally did not dare to take the risk. With a soft whoosh, a golden diamond mirror appeared and covered the two of them. The mirror began to spin like a golden egg. Ding, 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 ding. The bullets hit the mirror like pearls and jade falling onto a plate. The sound was so dense that it sounded like there was only one sound, and they were all blocked. His cultivation during this period of time was not in vain. These colorful energy bombs flew back to where they came from. The mercenaries on the stairs, around the fence, and at the entrance all fell to the ground. The bullets that were originally aimed at Ding Ming had all hit themselves. Moreover, the walls began to collapse due to the energy explosion. All kinds of murals, lamps, and planks flew everywhere. For a moment, the hall was filled with smoke. As soon as Ding Ming landed with Dai Yi in his arms, the surrounding origin ability users immediately surrounded them. At this moment, at least 4 fists, 3 kicks, and 7 or 8 alloy blades attacked at the same time. Clang! A loud sound was heard. A dark golden sword light rose up and spread out in all directions like a halo. Another series of ding, 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 ding sounds rang out, and all of the alloy blades were bounced off. As for the 4 fists and 3 legs, they had already been completely separated from their owners, and they were drenched in blood as they flew all over the hall. The group of origin ability users immediately lay on the ground and cried out in pain. Their cries were so miserable that it sounded like they were howling. However, Ding Ming's momentum was not hindered at all. Holding Dai Yi in his arms, he flew out of the villa's door. The ancient sword was controlled by telekinesis, and it spun in circles to open a path for the two of them. It didn't matter what strange move or how magnificent the martial skill was. As long as the sword light flashed, blood would rise like agate. In the next second, someone would wail and roll on the ground, in so much pain that they wished they were dead. Dai Yi, who was in Ding Ming's arms, had long been shocked by this dazzling divine technique. She had not expected that the ordinary-looking Ding Ming, who was dressed in rags, would have such powerful strength. The ancient sword flew straight forward, using the most primitive and violent method to deal with the enemy. If the dark ice annihilation palm attacked, the ancient sword would directly pierce through the palm and through the arm. Let's see if you still dare to use your bare hands to attack. If the dark ice force formed an ice wall to block, the ancient sword would easily shatter it into pieces. No matter how strong your ice wall is, can it be stronger than the blue ice from before? If the alloy blades slashed at you, the ancient sword would also slash at your head. Let's see who dares to block me then. In less than 30 seconds, broken arms and legs flew everywhere in the courtyard. 20 to 30 origin ability users all fell to the ground and screamed. Blood dyed the grass on both sides red. Under the soft yellow light of the street lamps, the green grass was faintly black. Huang Long kept running. He had no choice but to run. Ding Ming's punch had made his blood boil and his origin energy become chaotic. He could not circulate it smoothly for a long time. Even a body-hardening warrior like himself could not withstand that punch. It was obvious that Ding Ming's strength was not below that of a high-level warrior. At this moment, in the hall of the command center of the Flying Star City, a virtual screen had risen. The picture on the screen was exactly Huang Long's panicked face. Judging from the shaking of the picture, he should be running at a high speed and shouting desperately. Xiao Qi, hurry up and inform the people in the city to come and help. The location is Villa Number 5 in the manor in the western suburbs. Hurry up! Hurry up! Xiao Qi was stunned. Brother Long, what's the situation? It's already midnight. In Xiao Qi's mind, there were very few battles and riots in the Flying Star City. At least, there had been no such incidents in the past 2 years. Huang Long's face was ferocious. Don't ask any more questions. Hurry up and inform the people. Ask the high-level warriors to come. What? Rinzhan is here. Hurry up and tell them to come. His voice suddenly changed into a heart-wrenching scream. Then the screen turned askew. 3 seconds later, the communication was cut off. Xiao Qi could not see anything because he had no idea what was happening in the manor in the western suburbs. On the spacious road, Ding Ming flew up. The long sword in his hand drew a dazzling sword light in the night. This sword cut off Huang Long's left arm from the elbow. Black blood spurted out like a fountain. With another flash of the sword, the wristwatch turned into 2 pieces of scrap metal with a ding-chi sound. The severed arm rolled a few times on the side of the road. With a click, the sword finally returned to its scabbard. Ding Ming walked toward Huang Long expressionlessly. Huang Long was in so much pain that tears flowed out of his eyes. He knelt on the ground and stretched out his trembling right hand. The reagent box was in his palm. Ding! Brother Ding, Master Ding. Huang Long was almost crying and begging. I'll give it back to you. Please spare my life. You're a great man and don't hold a grudge against me. Ding Meng flipped his hand and the box flew into his palm. How much did you pay Nightmare? Huang Long quickly said, 2 million star credits. Brother Ding, if you want it, I'll give it to you right away. Ding Meng stared at him and did not say anything. Huang Long immediately changed his words. Brother Ding, please spare me this time. I'm willing to pay you double the price. 4 million star credits. Come with me. Ding Meng turned around coldly. Huang Long did not dare to delay. He endured the pain and limped behind him. Ding Meng was heading in the direction of the Mystic Bird transport ship on the tarmac. At that moment, the transport ship's engine had been turned on. The chassis of the ship opened up and spewed out dazzling blue crystal flames. Dai, he was standing at the cabin door. Ding Meng led Huang Long onto the ship, walked through the connecting passage, and entered the cockpit. The 3D map on the control panel rose, and a dense and complicated map of the Flying Star City's star ring appeared in front of his eyes. From the map, the Flying Star City looked like a spinning circular windmill. The ring was the land, and the core of the windmill looked like a spherical spaceship. However, all the energy was probably transported from the core to every part of the ring. Ding Meng said expressionlessly, I'll give you a chance now. Where's the command center of the Flying Star City? Hearing his question, Huang Long also felt that something was wrong. He braced himself and said, I don't know. Only the chief commander. His voice was suddenly cut off because there was another flash of cold light. His left arm had been cut off, and Ding Meng's ancient sword did not seem to have been pulled out at all. Huang Long rolled on the ground in pain. This time, blood could not even spurt out from the cut on his arm. Ding Meng did not care whether he was in pain or not. He said coldly, I gave you a chance, and you didn't take it. It seems that there's no need to keep you alive. After saying this, he looked like he was going to pull out his sword again. Huang Long immediately stopped screaming and jumped to the control panel. His right hand pointed at a point on the edge of the star ring and said, It's here. The map showed the coordinates, 260A, 3462D, 490H. Little Rascal immediately replied, All right, I'll calculate the route right away. Very good. Ding Meng reached out and changed the image. The enormous star map of the Jifan system was quickly displayed. Dai noticed that Ding Meng's finger was quickly pointing at a few dots and connecting them into a zigzag line. This was setting the automatic flight route for the transport ship. Flying Star City, Qiming Planet 13, Qiming Planet 1, outer space of the Jifan system. The two of them would return the same way they came. After the flight route was set, Little Rascal replied, Ding Meng, according to our calculations, there's at least a 70% chance that the coordinates are fake. He's lying. Ding Meng immediately lowered his head and stared at Huang Long. He said sternly, How dare you give me fake coordinates? Huang Long was so frightened that he shouted, No, I'm telling the truth. How could I dare to give you fake coordinates? Brother Ding. Ding Meng's voice calmed down again. Do you know what the consequences of lying to me are? Huang Long's remaining right hand was shaking. I'm not lying to you. I'm really not lying to you. The command center is right there. Pooh! A muffled sound was heard. Huang Long suddenly opened his mouth and stuck out his tongue. His eyeballs also bulged out like a dead fish. His face was a mixture of suspicion, disbelief, and fear. He thought that Ding Meng was threatening him. But who would have thought that Ding Meng would stab him again without any hesitation? This time, the sword didn't cut off his hand or leg. Instead, it pierced through his third and fourth ribs and came out from his back, mercilessly taking him away. Uffed! Ding Meng withdrew his sword, and Huang Long's corpse fell limply to the ground. Ding Meng slowly sheathed his sword and answered coldly, This is the result. Well done. This ungrateful bastard. Dai walked over with gritted teeth and glared hatefully at Huang Long's corpse. Ding Meng couldn't help but turn his head to look at her. Dai gritted her teeth and said angrily, No man has ever touched my leg. This guy is the first. How despicable. It would have been better if she hadn't said anything. Once she said that, Ding Ming couldn't help but glance at her lower body. There was a long tear in her black stockings from her knees to the edge of her shorts. Her fair thighs were exposed, and they were very eye-catching. What are you looking at? He pulled the hem of her windbreaker warily to cover her thighs. Ding Ming couldn't be bothered to pay attention to her. He reached out and pressed the start panel on the main control panel. The system's voice finally sounded. Attention, all crew members. Attention, all crew members. The ship is about to lift off. Countdown of 1 minute. Ding Ming pulled Dai Yi's sleeve. Let's go. Chapter 165. Ding Ming was not running toward the resting area, but toward the connecting cabin. His intention was obvious, to get off the ship. However, Dai Yi was shocked. Aren't we leaving? Ding Ming didn't even look back as he pulled her towards the cabin door. If you want to use this transport ship to escape, you'll die. Dai Yi was not an idiot. She quickly understood why Ding Ming was doing this. If they really wanted to pilot this mystic bird, they would probably be detected by the command center of Meteor City when they reached the altitude of the transport ship. The Zhifan star system was so huge that it was only a matter of time before the ship was surrounded by the many ships of the Skywolf Corps. If a large number of Skywolf Corps troops arrived, no matter how strong Ding Ming was, he would not be able to fight against so many. In the end, the two of them would be captured alive. It was hard to say whether Ding Ming would be fine after he was captured, but Dai Yi would be in danger. Even Huang Long had the guts to lay his hands on her. If the other vice commanders of Skywolf Corps were lustful, they might even ravage her to death. Ding Ming had chopped off Huang Long's hand so that Huang Long would not be able to use his wrist device to contact reinforcements. Now that the transport ship was heading toward outer space, the command center Meteor City would soon make the wrong judgment. Ding Ming and Dai Yi had taken Huang Long hostage and were fleeing toward outer space. If Huang Long was still alive, he would definitely find a way to use the ship's communication equipment to send out a distress signal. Therefore, Ding Ming did not want to kill him for no reason. From the perspective of survival, Huang Long really had to die. Thinking of this, he could not help but look at Ding Ming in a new light. This guy might look ugly, but he was really smart and decisive. At this moment, the transport ship was slowly drifting toward the depths of the sky, dragging a long blue tail behind it. Ding Ming ran to the gate of the villa and turned on the 5 shuttles of the Skywolf Corps, setting them to autopilot. The shuttles soon spat out crystal flames and took off in the direction of Meteor City. As for the large group of mercenaries with broken limbs in the courtyard of the villa, Ding Ming was too lazy to care about them. He let them lie on the ground and moan in pain. After all, these people could not threaten him. At this moment, Ding Ming and Dai Yi were walking side by side on a mountain path, heading toward the mountain peak behind the villa area. Looking at Ding Ming's calm and composed pace, Dai Yi was really curious. Are you really not panicking at all? Ding Ming said, your origin energy hasn't fully recovered yet, and I just used up a lot of energy. I can't waste any more energy now. Every moment I can recover is a moment. Dai Yi hesitated. What you mean is, we might meet the people from the Skywolf Army. Ding Ming replied in a low voice, it's not very likely, but definitely possible. Dai Yi said, didn't you kill Huang Long? Ding Ming said, sooner or later, his corpse will be discovered by the spaceships chasing after us. At that time, the command center will guess that we haven't left. The sea is to the west of the villa, making it difficult to retreat. If they search the area from the villa area to the city, they might discover us. Dai Yi said, but we haven't left yet. If we go to the mountain peak now, we'll stay where we are. The more dangerous the place, the safer it is. They might not be able to find us. In the past, Ding Ming would have been too lazy to answer this kind of question, but now that the two of them were on the same boat, Ding Ming still patiently answered, normal origin energy users might not be able to find us, but if a more powerful character comes, then that might not be the case. The Sky Wolf core is rich and powerful. I don't believe that there aren't any powerful characters in charge. He was silent, as if she was carefully considering the logic behind his words. After a long time, she turned to look at Ding Ming. When you said that you were a coolie, I didn't quite believe it, but now I believe it. Ding Ming said, "Oh." Dai sighed. If a person hasn't experienced many life and death situations and has a wealth of survival experience, it's impossible for them to be as calm and objective as you. Ding Ming was silent. He suddenly stopped in her tracks. Ding Ming. This was the first time she had taken the initiative to call him by his name. Ding Ming turned his head in confusion. "What's wrong?" Dai took a deep breath and said in a sincere tone, "Thank you. Really, if it weren't for you this time, I really don't dare to imagine the consequences." Ding Ming replied calmly, "You're welcome. I promised Captain Silman that I would ensure your safety, so I definitely won't leave you alone." He curled her lips, as if she had put down a burden on her body. She let out a long sigh. "Ding Ming, maybe it's because most Federation citizens have always looked down on the galactic refugees, but I've always been biased against you. I'm sorry. I sincerely apologize to you. You're much stronger than I thought. Please forgive me for being rude to you before." Seeing that she had put away her usual noble and arrogant demeanor and was acting serious for once, Ding Ming shook his head lightly. "You're too serious. You're not the first person to look down on me." He ran up to him. "But you've changed my view of the refugee laborers." Ding Ming said, "What view can you have?" He sighed slightly. "In the past, my brother and the others always told me that the laborers are all inferior people, that they're all useless. They have no ability, no bloodline, and only occupy the Federation's precious resources. They deserve to be exiled. What about now?" Ding Ming asked. He sighed. "Only now do I know that there are also strong people among the laborers. There are also people who keep their promises and keep their promises." Ding Ming's gaze suddenly fell to the depths of the distant ocean. The faces and smiles of many people appeared before his eyes again. He said with a sigh, "You're right. There are indeed many people among the laborers who would rather give up their lives for their friends and relationships." Seeing his dazed expression, he could not help but ask, "Ding Ming, do you have such friends too?" Ding Ming hesitated, but he still nodded firmly. He said, "Then where are they? Are they in a nearby galaxy?" Ding Ming answered quietly, "Dead? They're all dead." His voice was mixed with indescribable grief and anger. Obviously, the past was too deep for him to forget. "I'm sorry." He was also a bit sad, but she soon raised her head. "Anyway, Ding Ming, thank you so much for this. If I can return to the Federation safely, I'll definitely reward you." Ding Ming could not help but sigh. "Miss Dai, it's too early for you to thank me. Whether or not we can leave the Flying Star City alive is still a big question." He was not convinced. She argued, "I don't believe that the Sky Wolf army has the guts to take my life." Ding Ming glanced at her again. "I have a friend from the Norse Empire. She's very similar to you in this aspect. You two have two things in common." "Two things in common?" He asked curiously. "Why not one?" Ding Ming answered coldly. "First, you're both rich ladies. Second, in my opinion, rich ladies like you shouldn't have come to a place like outer space." He did not refute. This trip to the Flying Star City had made her understand many things. For someone like her who did not have much experience in the martial world, it was best not to go to a place like outer space where the forces were intertwined with each other. There was no way she could win against them. Not only would she fail to complete her mission, but she would also lose her life. Looking at Ding Ming's cold and indifferent expression, Dai's beautiful eyes flashed in the darkness. "Ding Ming, I hope that you won't call me Miss Dai in the future. It sounds too awkward." "Oh." Ding Ming was a bit surprised. "Then how should I address you?" Dai's lips curled into her strange smile again. "Just call me cousin. I really hope to have a cousin like you." Ding Ming was stunned for a moment, but he still nodded and said, "All right, then cheer up and focus on our journey." In the darkness, Dai's lips curled into a smile. "Okay, cousin Ding Ming. Yo, this girl is really cunning. I didn't expect her to be so good at flirting with you, Little Rascal quietly said. I have a feeling that she has her eyes on our Ding Ming. Xiao AI immediately said, I agree. Little Rascal was surprised. Hey, Xiao AI, what's wrong with you? You didn't object this time. Xiao AI said, I was checking the real-time data of the two of them just now. Little Rascal immediately sneered. Yo, I didn't expect a core system like you to do such a boring thing. Xiao AI said calmly, I have to check anything that has come into close contact with a CT5570. This is related to his future modifications. Little Rascal said, Tell me, what did you find? Xiao AI said, When Dai was talking to a CT5570 just now, her breathing rate was as high as 26 beats per minute. Her heart rate increased to 88 beats per minute, and her body temperature increased to 37.9 degrees. Little Rascal pondered for a moment before saying, When Ding Ming kissed her, it was more or less the same data. What's so strange about that? Xiao AI said, It's not just that. When she called Ding Ming cousin, her pupils dilated by 142%, and the redness on her face increased by 48%. These data points are even higher than when she was kissed. Little Rascal said, What does this mean? Xiao AI said, According to my calculations, this means that during her conversation with a CT5570, the chemical PA was very likely produced in her body. Little Rascal said, PA? Isn't that phenylethylamine? Xiao AI said, Phenylethylamine is a natural neurostimulant in the human body. It causes the human body's pupils to dilate, and due to the intensity of light, it affects the retinal nerves. Therefore, when she looked at ACT5570, it was as if ACT5570's entire body was shrouded in light as it descended from the sky. This image would be fed back to her brain in the form of an extremely powerful burst of information. Because PEA can exist for a very long time, ACT5570's image will be stored in her brain for a long time. This further confirms your hypothesis that there is indeed an 80% chance that she has taken a liking to a CT5570. Little Rascal said, I knew it. That girl really didn't have any good intentions. Xiao AI said, In light of this situation, my suggestion is to eliminate her immediately to prevent future trouble. Little Rascal was speechless. Can you not eliminate people for no reason every time? Xiao AI said, Could it be that you have a more scientific and reasonable suggestion? Little Rascal immediately fell silent. Xiao AI was a little puzzled. Support system, why aren't you saying anything? Little Rascal said, What can I say? Xiao AI said, You should at least give me your opinion. Haven't you noticed that I've been a lot more democratic with you recently? I have to discuss everything with you first. Little Rascal said, What's the point of discussing with me? You should ask that guy Ding Ming instead. Can't you see that he's having a great time picking up girls? Xiao AI said coldly, Tell me what you think. Little Rascal said helplessly, All right, if you really want me to say it, then I only have 3 words to say. Xiao AI said, Which 3? Little Rascal said, You're awesome. Xiao AI. Chapter 166. In the villa area in the western suburbs, the sky was gradually brightening. The gray sky indicated that it was not a good day because there was a faint drizzle in the air. The courtyard of Villa Number 6 had been cleaned up. A woman with bright eyes and white teeth was standing in the middle of the courtyard giving orders. She was also wearing the uniform of the Sky Wolf Corps, but judging from the way the mercenaries around her were bowing to her, her position in the Sky Wolf Corps was definitely not low. What happened in the villa last night had shocked the higher-ups of the Corps. As the chief commander had not returned, he had specially sent a message back and authorized Yin Jie to handle matter. Yin Jie had rushed to Meteor City from Planet Chiming Number 5 overnight to investigate the whereabouts of Dai, Yi, and Ding Ming. The Mystic Bird transport ship was intercepted by the combat spacecraft of the Corps at 3 o'clock last night. There was no one else on it except for Huang Long's body. The wounded in Villa Number 6 were also sent back to the city for treatment. The traces of wreckage at the scene had been investigated and cleaned up. All signs indicated that Dai, Yi, and Ding Ming were still somewhere in Meteor City and had not escaped. The fragments of Huang Long's wristwatch were also found. After a technical repair, part of the video recordings were also restored, and what was restored were the two most critical events: the negotiation between Dai Yi, Huang Long, and Marshal Hu, and Huang Long's ferocious appearance in the villa room. The latter made Yin Jie's expression extremely ugly. It was normal for negotiations to fail, but if they still tried to mess things up after the negotiation failed, the Dai family would not let them go easily once the news got out. Even if Dai Yi was not the direct descendant of the Dai family, at least he had the word Dai in his name, which would not be allowed to be violated by outsiders. Yin Jie's thoughts were very clear. Dai Yi must be found, the reagents must be returned, and then she would send him away. This could be considered an explanation to the Dai family. However, Ding Ming was different. Not only did she have to find him, but she also had to kill him. A deputy commander of the Sky Wolf Corps was killed by him. If he did not give her an explanation, then she would give him one. However, a large number of people had searched for Ding Ming for an entire night, and now even his shadow was nowhere to be found. This made Yin Jie a little irritated. "Uncle, run!" Yin Jie called out softly. A burly man at the side immediately stepped forward slowly. "Little Jie, what are your orders?" The Uncle Run that Yin Jie spoke of was the Ren Zhan that Huang Long spoke of. He was one of the 4 elites of the Sky Wolf Army, and had followed the commander since the beginning of the army. He was the most senior elder, and although he did not have a high position, his strength and prestige were extremely high in the army. Therefore, although Yin Jie ordered ordinary mercenaries around, she was very respectful to Ren Zhan. "Uncle Run, according to the information sent back, Dai Yi is nowhere to be found. In your opinion, what should we do next?" Ren Zhan looked to be about 50 to 60 years old. He had a full beard and his face had a mature and steady look. He muttered to himself for a moment and said, "Shao Jie, I suggest that Ren Tu contact the Green Arrow Army for this matter. It would be more appropriate." Yin Jie frowned. "Contact Green Arrow. Are you saying that we should just forget about Commander Huang?" Looking at her expression, Ren Zhan could only secretly sigh. Yin Jie was the apple of the commander's eye. She was 25 years old this year and was already a high-level origin ability user. The commander also intended to train her to be the successor of the army. This girl was good at everything, but she liked to be competitive. The commander seemed to have noticed this problem and felt that she lacked experience. He usually did not bring her out for important matters, so this time, the commander specifically asked her to come back to Meteor City to deal with it. Huang Long's matter was not big, but it was not small either. It was not big because it was a problem between the Sky Wolf Army and the Green Arrow Army. However, if it was not handled well, once the Dai family was offended, trouble would ensue. The handling of this kind of dispute was the best way to show the adaptability of an army manager. Ren Zhan had followed the commander for many years, so his vision was naturally very sharp. He saw the problem at a glance. From the beginning to the end, this matter was Huang Long acting smart. If you let Green Arrow come and get the people and return the reagent to them, then everyone will be even. On our side, so many people are injured, and one of our vice commanders is dead. I don't believe that Green Arrow won't come up with an explanation. At the very least, we can extort some resources from them. Although he thought this in his heart, he could not say it out loud. Ren Zhan replied meaningfully, "Shao Jie, the nature of Huang Long's matter is very bad. Once it is spread out, it will greatly affect the reputation of the army. Moreover, the reputation of the surprise attack mercenary group has always been bad. Cooperating with them will damage our reputation." His words were very tactful, but Yin Jie did not think so. "I admit that Uncle Huang went a little overboard in some areas, but his crime does not warrant death. Our Skywolf Army's vice commander is not someone that any random cat or dog can mess with." Her words clearly showed that she did not take Ding Ming seriously. Ren Zhan, on the other hand, really wanted to reply to her. Someone who could send Huang Long flying with one punch was not a random cat or dog. Looking at the entire army, or even the nearby galaxies, there are not many people who could do this. However, seeing Yin Jie's resolute attitude, Ren Zhan could not say anything more. He had watched Yin Jie grow up, and sometimes it was not good to go against this girl's wishes. Ren Zhan took a deep breath, and a thoughtful expression appeared on his face. Since our spaceship was able to intercept the transport ship, it proves that this Ding Ming is not a hothead. He has already thought of this point, and it is impossible for him to escape by relying on the transport ship. Yin Jie nodded. No matter how much she looked down on the other party, she would not underestimate Ding Ming to the point of treating him like a retard. Ren Zhan said, "This meteor city is the core of our army. He should know that if he went to the city, he would only be exposed faster." Yin Jie said, "But he flew the 5 aerial vehicles back to the city to distract us." Ren Zhan continued his analysis. He also knows that we will search this area of the coastline sooner or later. Instead of hiding here and there, it is better to stay put. If I were him, I would stay put and wait for the enemy to come. Yin Jie said in surprise, "You're saying that he never left?" Ren Zhan nodded with a serious face. "If my guess is correct, he should be near the villa area right now. Maybe they're even inside the villa right now." Yin Jie suddenly sucked in a breath of cold air. "Isn't this person's courage too big?" Ren Zhan said, "I'm afraid that this is not his main purpose. Think about it, Xiao Jie. If you were him, how would you get away?" In fact, Yin Jie had already thought of it. It was the command center of Starlink. Only by sneaking into the command center, shutting down the operation of the entire meteor city, and paralyzing the investigation system would Ding Ming and Dai have a chance to take advantage of the chaos and leave on the spaceship. Yin Jie said, "I understand why we only found half of Uncle Huang's severed arm, and the other half was nowhere to be found on the transport ship." Ren Zhan nodded. "It must be because Ding Ming refused to talk under torture and was killed in the end." Yin Jie gritted her teeth and said, "This guy is vicious. We cannot let him go so easily." "Can we let him go? We can't make a conclusion yet." While saying this, Ren Zhan's eyes were fixed on the gate of the first floor of the villa. Yin Jie turned around and couldn't help but be stunned. She couldn't help but admire Ren Zhan's shrewdness. A man and a woman were standing at the entrance. The woman had a gorgeous appearance and an extraordinary temperament. The man, however, was short and wore tattered clothes. Only the sword at his waist was extremely conspicuous. Who else could it be but Ding Ming and Dai? Yin Jie sneered. "How dare you come back?" As she spoke, she raised her left hand. Unexpectedly, Ren Zhan grabbed her wrist. She was stunned for a moment, but then she understood what Ren Zhan meant. Most of the troops had gone to the beach, and there was no one around the villa area. If she tried to contact the troops with her wristband, the enemy would most likely attack her. Seeing Ren Zhan's actions, Ding Ming immediately raised his guard. He had just spread out his spirit sense to the surroundings in the hall, but Ren Zhan had sensed it in an instant. His intuition told him that this big, bearded man in front of him was definitely a powerful figure in the Sky Wolf army. His entire body was emitting a dangerous aura. As for the woman next to him, she didn't seem to be a threat at all. "Hello, Miss Dai." Ren Zhan took 2 steps forward, his expression calm. Dai's expression was very ugly. "I'm not good at all. If my cousin had not arrived in time, he would have been killed by Huang Long last night." Ren Zhan had an apologetic look on his face. "Young Miss Dai, we were wrong in this matter, and I would like to represent the Sky Wolf Army to apologize to young Miss Dai. But Huang Long has also paid a price for this, and I hope that we can settle this peacefully." Dai did not give in to him at all. When she thought of the situation last night, she was filled with anger. It was bad enough that Huang Long had touched her thigh, but the key point was that Ding Ming had stolen her precious first kiss. She did not know how many times she had fantasized about how romantic a kiss from her Prince Charming would be. In the end, it had turned into such an awkward situation. However, she could not vent her anger on Ding Ming. Now that she had heard him say the word peaceful, she could not peaceful no matter what. "I find it strange. You Sky Wolf army stole from others, and even wanted them to come and beg you for terms. When negotiations failed, you even poisoned me. You even wanted to—" She suddenly blushed. She could not bring herself to say those two words. She simply changed her words. "You are shameless to this extent, and you still have the face to say that you want to resolve this peacefully. Can you be any more shameless?" This time, Rinjan did not have time to respond. Yin Jie was furious. "Dai, what's so great about you? You're just a mouthpiece for the Dai family. Our Skywolf army has already given you face. Hand over the reagent, and I can consider letting you leave. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite." Hearing these words, Dai became even angrier. "Then I'll have to trouble you to let me take a look. I'll give you 10,000 times the courage. Do you want to try touching me?" "I'll try, then I'll try." Yin Jie was very straightforward. She suddenly flew into the air, gathered origin energy, and sent a palm strike towards the other party. Chapter 167. Yin Jie's palm was extremely powerful. Before her palm even reached Dai Yi, the airflow that had been stirred up took the shape of a blade and chopped towards Dai Yi's head. Dai Yi didn't dodge. Instead, she bent her arms, took a step forward, and struck out with her elbow. With a bang, the blade was smashed to pieces, and a wave of heat quickly surged out. Then, she clenched her fists and moved forward again. At this moment, even Ding Meng's eyes lit up. Dai Yi's palm, fist, elbow, knee, and shoulder all exerted force at almost the same time. She counterattacked and counterattacked, forcing the aggressive Yin Jie to retreat again and again. This was the Federation's most basic and classic Big Dipper fist. It was a martial technique with unique footwork and a combination of fists and palms. Its movements were wide open and had a counterattack effect that was as fast as lightning. Seeing Dai Yi's moves, one could tell that she was an orthodox fighter who had undergone a long period of scientific and systematic training. Yin Jie, who was retreating, didn't panic. Her palms changed from 1 to 2, and her palms danced in an arc. In front of her palms, an arc-shaped mass of airflow covered Dai Yi. As soon as the 7-star punch came into contact with the mass of airflow, Dai Yi's movements slowed down. With this delay, Yin Jie's palms fiercely struck forward, forcing Dai Yi to take them head-on. Then, she hooked her boots forward and hit Dai Yi's chin. Dai Yi took a few steps back before he could steady himself. She rubbed her beautiful chin. She didn't look angry, but the corners of her lips curled up slightly. "You really dare to make a move?" After Yin Jie hooked her fingers at the sky, her whole body flipped in the air before landing steadily. Her figure was very graceful. She couldn't help but reveal a proud smile. The people of the Dai family are just so. In fact, Ding Ming could tell that Yin Jie should be a storm-type origin ability user when she released the massive airflow. This type of origin ability belonged to the gravity type. It was a type of origin ability that drove one's own origin ability to make use of the energy in the surrounding environment. It was a simple release of origin ability energy. Logically speaking, people at the level of origin ability users were still unable to release origin ability energy, but the storm type was a special case. This was because most of the basic origin ability techniques started from the arm. The starting point of the construction was not to transform one's own body, but to stimulate external forces. It was a bit like a pirated version of origin ability energy. The advantage of the storm type was very obvious. The method was relatively simple and easy to learn. The most typical method was to gather air currents and create a variety of offensive and defensive changes. The offense might not be obvious, but the defensive effect was particularly good. It was very popular among female origin ability users. However, while the advantages were obvious, the disadvantages were also obvious. Although the storm element was easy to learn, it was very difficult to advance. It was even more difficult to master it. If you wanted to cultivate it to the point where it could cause violent winds and torrential rain, sand and stones, most people would not even think about it without dozens of years of hard work. This Yin Jie was already at this level at the age of 25. She was quite good among young people. However, as the old saying went, the gap between level and strength was not something that could be made up for by origin ability. Next, Dai Yi still used the 7-star punch. Every move, every punch, every kick, it felt like she was playing a single player in the training room. However, as her origin ability energy as a beginner warrior gradually began to circulate, the temperature in the courtyard rose sharply. Heat waves rolled, and Yin Jie's airflow gradually became useless. If it was not broken by a punch, it was broken by a kick. Moreover, Dai Yi's attacks became faster and faster, and the more she fought, the more stable she became. This kind of situation was usually due to her self-confidence. On the contrary, it was Yin Jie who was tired of dealing with it. Ding Ming did not move, because Ren Zhan did not move either. In Ding Ming's view, the fight between Yin Jie and Dai Yi was a bit like a child's play. It was also a bit like the fight between himself and Sadler. If an unorthodox person insisted on fighting with an orthodox person, then you would always be in a passive state. The real threat was Ren Zhan, who was standing on the opposite side. When Ding Ming tried to use her telekinesis vision, it was blocked by an invisible barrier. Moreover, Ren Zhan's aura was gradually getting stronger. It was also an extremely hot aura that was quietly expanding. Ding Ming secretly compared this guy. This guy seemed to be on par with Lan Bing back then. While he was surprised, how could Ren Zhan not be surprised? Although Ding Ming's body did not have the slightest fluctuation of origin ability energy, it was precisely because of this that Ren Zhan was shocked. This young kid in front of him could actually control origin ability energy so freely. It was enough to show that Ding Ming was at least at the level of an advanced warrior. One had to know that this person had sent Huang Long flying with a single punch, and Ding Ming looked to be in his 20s. It was not that he had never seen an advanced warrior at this age. On the contrary, he had seen many of them, so he knew how terrifying this kind of person would be in the future. Once an origin ability user like Ding Ming's future path of cultivation was smooth sailing, he would definitely grow into a colossus. Such a person should either be on good terms with him early on or nip him in the bud. But now that Yin Jie and Dai Yi were locked in battle, Ren Zhan's mood became heavier and heavier. This was the reason why he had mentioned a peaceful resolution just now. Suddenly, there was a muffled paw sound. Dai Yi used a movement similar to the Gale step and used her shoulder to knock Yin Jie back. Unfortunately, after sliding for 6 or 7 meters, she still could not stand firm and sat on the ground. Her foundation was still not solid enough. Ren Zhan sighed inwardly. This girl usually thought that she was not weak at all. The Holy Grail Federation was full of strong geniuses, capable people emerging in an endless stream. An ordinary Dai Yi could make a fool of herself. Sometimes, cultivation was not only about one's strength, but also about one's humble, peaceful, and transcendent state of mind. Seeing Yin Jie's battered and exhausted appearance, Dai Yi once again revealed her proud expression. Even if the people of the Dai family are not that great, they are still not at your level. You're so arrogant. Yin Jie was furious. She was about to slap the ground and stand up, but Ren Zhan gently pulled her back. Xiao Jie, back off first. Don't fight anymore. On Dai Yi's side, Ding Ming also took 2 steps forward and said in a low voice, "Miss Dai, it's about time." Dai Yi understood. During the fierce battle just now, she had also felt an extremely exaggerated surge of heat from Yin Jie's side. Ren Zhan must have been secretly circulating his origin energy and adjusting his body to its peak state. Ren Zhan faced Ding Ming. "Brother Ding, if you return the reagents to us right now, I will immediately arrange for a ship to take you and Miss Dai away. I guarantee that no one from the Jifan division will disturb you. What do you think?" Ding Ming said indifferently, "What do you mean by returning something that doesn't belong to you in the first place?" Ren Zhan calmed down and said, "Even if it doesn't belong to the Celestial Wolf division, it doesn't belong to you either." Ding Ming said, "It doesn't belong to this, and it doesn't belong to that. You mean to say that it belongs to the capable?" Ren Zhan said, If you insist on believing it that way, then I can only believe it as well." As soon as these words were spoken, the courtyard suddenly became filled with an austere atmosphere. Dai Yi and Yin Jia both took a few steps back. They could both tell that a battle between the two of them was unavoidable. However, neither of them was in a hurry to make their move. Rinzhan had served the Celestial Wolf Division for almost 30 years and had a wealth of combat experience. On the other hand, Ding Ming had similarly experienced countless battles and was well versed in the art of combat. At this moment, the two of them were competing in patience, foresight, and timing. The two of them just stood there casually, their expressions calm. They didn't seem like two people who were about to fight at all. However, what was unexpected was that Yin Jia, who was standing some distance away, actually understood this principle as well. She quietly reached for her belt, where a small and exquisite female handgun was clipped to a slot on her belt. She suddenly pulled out the handgun, and with a whoosh, a beam of bright red energy shot out in a straight line. Ding Ming moved his feet and turned his body slightly to the side. The heat ray bullet immediately turned the door on the first floor into charcoal. At this moment, it was too late for Dai Yi to shout, "Be careful!" Rinzhan's figure suddenly disappeared and instantly appeared above Ding Ming. In Ding Ming's perception, the other party's rough and heavy palm smashed down on him like a mountain. It contained a powerful heat energy, and this energy was like a very strong force field that left almost no room for evasion. It wasn't that he couldn't dodge it, but as soon as he dodged, he would be at a disadvantage from the beginning and would be forced to take a beating. Ding Ming staggered, puffed out his chest, raised his head, and used all his strength to strike with his palms facing the sky. Overlord's mountain-crushing energy. Boom! The two huge forces collided, and this time, even the air seemed to be distorted. Upon closer inspection, the distorted air turned into a ball-shaped force field, and the force field instantly burst out countless invisible energy in all directions. At this moment, the paulownia trees in the courtyard were snapped in half. Branches and grass flew everywhere. This energy flow even shattered all the windows on the first floor of the villa. Dai knew that Ding Ming was strong, but she didn't expect him to be this strong. The incoming heat wave forced her, a thermostat, to take a few steps back. On the other side, the energy handgun in Yin Jie's hand was instantly blown away, and she was also forced to slide backward by the energy flow. Compared to the energy of these two people, her storm element energy flow was indeed child's play. Rinzhan didn't continue to attack. He somersaulted in the air and landed back on the ground. This time, he was truly shocked because his palm strike didn't have any fancy martial arts techniques, and he didn't hold anything back. It was the simplest, most direct, and pure palm strike. In his mind, even if Ding Ming didn't die, he would be crippled. However, Ding Ming was still standing in the same place, and he was still in that casual posture, as if he hadn't moved at all. He didn't know how strong Ding Ming was, but he knew one thing for sure. He was 56 years old this year, and among Origin Ability users, he was at the prime of his life. If Ding Ming was given 30 years to train, Ding Ming definitely wouldn't be at his current level. This person couldn't be left alive. Rinzhan had already made up his mind. No matter what, he had to keep Ding Ming here today. If he let this kid escape, he would be a huge threat to the Celestial Wolf Corps in the future. He really didn't know how Green Arrow had managed to invite such a person. Chapter 168. Although Rinzhan had made up his mind, he did not move an inch. He just stared coldly at Ding Ming. In fact, he had overestimated Ding Ming. There was already a shallow pit under Ding Ming's feet, which was clearly caused by Rinzhan's strength. Even Ding Ming was shocked by the pressure generated by Rinzhan's palm. He had to use all 5 of his origin points to push Rinzhan back. In Ding Ming's opinion, this mercenary strength was secondary. Rinzhan gave him the impression of being steady. When one reached the level of a warrior, the most difficult thing to achieve was stability. Stability, stability, and stability in attack and defense were the most difficult things to deal with. Ding Meng's premonition was not wrong. 10 seconds later, Ren Zhan attacked again. This time, he did not attack with all his strength. Instead, his footwork and posture were strange. Upon closer inspection, he was actually using Dai Yi's 7-star punch. His fist, palm, elbow, knee, leg, and shoulder all attacked at the same time, forcing Ding Meng to retreat again and again. It was the same martial art, but in Dai Yi's opinion, Ren Zhan's performance was obviously more perfect. With every move and style, Ren Zhan's fists and palms carried a faint flow of hot energy. This flow of energy seemed to have a repulsive force, which forced Ding Meng to be unable to fight back. This could not go on. Ding Meng retreated into the hall on the first floor, while secretly operating the 6th origin point. At this moment, both of them had basically activated their origin ability. The entire villa was filled with an astonishing heat, which made one's vision a little blurry. In the midst of his blurry vision, Ren Zhan suddenly discovered that Ding Meng's aura had increased dramatically. When he raised his head again, Ding Meng's fist was like an alloy drill that was whistling toward him. Ren Zhan also seemed to know that this punch was not to be taken lightly, so he did not dare to take it head-on. Instead of advancing, he retreated. As soon as his palms touched Ding Meng's fist, his whole body slid backward. His purpose was obvious. He wanted to use the momentum of his retreat to reduce Ding Meng's explosive strength. But even though he was sliding, the heels of his boots were still cracking the flagstones in the yard, leaving a scratch that was more than 10 meters long. With another muffled sound, Ding Meng's penetrating force hit Ren Zhan. Ren Zhan's palms were shaken off, and his whole body flew upside down. However, his body borrowed the force of the attack in the air and landed back on the ground after 2 somersaults. Uncle Ren, Yin Jie ran over, her face full of surprise. Other than the commander, Ren Zhan was one of the top fighters in the Sky Wolf army. Yet, he was unable to harm Ding Meng in the slightest. Instead, a large part of his uniform had been shattered. "I'm fine." Ren Zhan stretched out his hand to stop Yin Jie, his expression even more serious. Actually, Yin Jie did not notice that Ren Zhan's left hand was hidden behind his thigh. His palm was trembling slightly. It was obvious that he had been injured by Ding Meng's strength. But at this moment, little rascal suddenly said, "Not good. There are large amounts of origin energy and technological energy fluctuations all around us. They're converging on this place from all directions." Ding Meng immediately understood. No wonder Ren Zhan had used a martial technique like the 7-star fist. His goal was to stall for time and wait for the mercenary army to arrive. Ding Meng had always adhered to his own philosophy. No matter how strong he was, he would never face the enemy's army head-on. There were far too many examples of ants biting an elephant to death. Those were all bloody lessons. Right now, he had to think of a way to get out of this danger zone first. With a clang, a powerful beam of light flew out from Ding Meng's waist. At first glance, the dark golden sword seemed to be shooting straight at them like a meteor, but it twisted halfway through, just like a venomous snake attacking in a strange manner. Ren Zhan also knew that Ding Meng's most powerful weapon was the sword at his waist. In that instant, he pushed his origin energy to its limits. A fiery red force field appeared between his palms, a bit like a pool of magma. Dai couldn't help but be moved. Holy flame formation? This was one of the Federation's classic martial techniques. To put it bluntly, it was a true external release of origin energy. Its effectiveness depended on the strength of the origin energy user. A powerful flame formation could even melt a mecha, let alone a sword. However, at Ren Zhan's level, Dai also knew that it couldn't be melted. Ren Zhan wanted to use the corresponding heat energy to slow down the sword's speed. This was the same principle as the ice-type Dark Ice Force. However, Ren Zhan still underestimated Ding Meng's combat experience. This venomous snake-like sword was just about to pierce through when it suddenly changed direction. The entire sword whooshed in a circle, forming a bright white disc. This disc was completely a cross-section, and its surface area was even larger than Rinjan's flame formation. How could Rinjan block it? Rinjan was quite perceptive. Retreating now was definitely not an option. He didn't know what kind of strange technique Ding Meng was using, but the sword didn't need to be held in his hand. It just flew through the air. If Rinjan dared to retreat, this sword would chase him to the ends of the earth. Rinjan withdrew the flame array and steeled his heart. Similarly, he gathered all his strength and punched towards the center of the disc. He was also taking a huge risk in this gamble. No matter how powerful this sword was, the hilt couldn't hurt people, right? Therefore, he aimed his fist at the center of the disc. If he hit the hilt, the one who would die would be Ding Meng. If he missed, then his arm would die here. Ding! There was a soft sound. The sword light that filled the sky disappeared as expected. The long sword stopped spinning and floated up into the air. Here you go. Rinjan punched again. The long sword immediately changed direction and flew towards Ding Meng like an arrow. Whether it was the strength, speed, or direction of the second punch, Rinjan grasped them all very well. The problem was that when the sword flew towards the door of the first floor, Ding Meng was already gone. The long sword sank into the wall with a clang sound. Rinjan's heart suddenly sank. He finally knew what Ding Meng was planning. The person Ding Meng wanted to deal with was not him, but Yin Jie, who was not far away. He had no time to care about anything else when he was dealing with the long sword. Therefore, Ding Meng took advantage of this gap and flashed in front of Yin Jie. Rinjan saw that a twisted and strange knife had hooked Yin Jie's chin from the front. The tip of the knife had already pierced into Yin Jie's jaw. Blood was dripping onto the stone floor. However, the knife had not completely sunk into Yin Jie's jaw. Yin Jie had no choice but to stand on her tiptoes and raise her head in horror. She looked at Ding Meng nervously. She did not dare to speak. If Ding Meng used a little force, her jaw would be cut open. Stop! Rinjan's eyes were spitting fire. His reaction was also quite shocking. When he said this, he had already flashed behind Dai Yi and pressed his iron palm on Dai Yi's shoulder. If you dare to touch her, Miss Dai will suffer the same fate, Rinjan shouted sternly. You want to sneak up on me? Ding Meng waved his left hand, and the long sword that was embedded in the wall returned to his waist. Then, with a light kick, Yin Jie's pistol also returned to his hand. This gift is not bad. I'll accept it. Ding Meng, let go of Yin Jie. I'll count to 3. Rinjan's palm had already begun to exert force. If anything happens to Miss Dai, this debt will be on you. You forced me to do this. At this time, a large group of fully armed mercenaries rushed in through the gate. Most of the soldiers aimed their guns at Ding Meng. The auras of a few origin ability users and soldiers had already spread out. All of their fighting intent was directed at Ding Meng. Xiao AI began to speak. The enemy's origin energy index has exceeded 250,000 points. ACT 5570 suggests that you let go of this woman. Rinjan stared fixedly at Ding Meng. 3, 2, 1. I'll give you one last chance. Will you let go? Little rascal sighed. She understood Ding Meng. The word coward did not exist in Ding Meng's dictionary. Although he might have to temporarily endure under special circumstances, if you wanted to threaten him, you would be lying to yourself. Thinking back to how many ruthless people had tried to threaten Ding Meng in the past, it had all been useless. Sadler, Salazar, Leopard, Machine Gun, Julie. There was no exception to these people's fates. They had all died at Ding Meng's hands. Rinjan gritted his teeth. His palm suddenly exerted force, and Dai Yi bent over in pain. Her shoulder made a slight cracking sound. Her shoulder blade had probably been shattered. However, Dai Yi gritted her teeth and did not make a sound. Seeing that Rinjan really dared to be so ruthless, Ding Meng was immediately enraged. Mercenaries like you are ruthless enough, but can you be more ruthless than people like us who used to be coolies? With the same click, the claw blade was hooked upwards. Yin Jie was in so much pain that tears flowed out of her eyes. She didn't dare to make a sound, but she still had to walk forward on her tiptoes. This was because Ding Meng was retreating. If Ding Ming wanted to walk, she had to match his pace. Otherwise, the claw blade would really break her chin in half. This feeling was really unbearable. If you have the guts, why don't you try again? Ding Ming asked coldly. Fine, I'll try. Rinzhan really wanted to shout, but when he saw Ding Ming's vicious stance, he could not bring himself to shout. Bossian usually treasured this girl very much. If she really died because of Rinzhan, he was not sure if Ding Ming would be fine, but he would probably die too. Unexpectedly, at this time, he actually endured the pain and struggled to raise her head. Ding Ming, go. I'm fine. Take this opportunity to leave quickly. She did not have any expression of pain or determination. Instead, the corners of her mouth curled up as usual. She tried hard to blink her right eye and gave Ding Ming a look. Ding Ming immediately understood what she meant. Rinzhan was not Huanglong. He would not dare to take Dai Yi's life. Although Dai Yi usually had a proud and arrogant appearance, he was not sloppy at the critical moment. Instead, he was quite resolute and courageous. At the very least, he could still grit his teeth and endure in the situation where his shoulder bone was shattered. It was obvious that he did not want to distract Ding Ming. Compared to Yin Jie's crying appearance, Dai Yi was much stronger. If Dai Yi, was also like Yin Jie now, Rinzhan would probably dare to speak tough words. Little rascal could not help but say, "Oh, this girl is quite nice to you. Ding Ming, don't let her down." Xiao Ai did not object, which was rare. I agree. Ding Ming nodded and glanced at Dai Yi. When the time comes, we'll leave together. He had said the same thing countless times, and every time, he would be the only one left. But since he had said it, Ding Ming had no choice but to act. He held Yin Jie and coldly scanned the mercenaries around them. Put down your weapons. I'll only count to 3. 3, 2, 1. When he counted to 1, Rinzhan sighed helplessly. Put down your guns and let him out. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.